It is. What do we have here? It's Monday night in East Lansing, Michigan, coming to you early in the week this time. Early in the week, a little bit late getting started again, but I was tracking down some information, trying to look at some film on Philip Davis. We'll have Jason Killip on here in a few minutes to talk about some Michigan State recruiting. I was also looking up some other things. Sorry we're late, later than the time we advertised would be kicking off. But we appreciate everybody checking us out. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Trying to get my headphones to work here a little bit. I'm having a problem. But, hey, come on in, gather around. It's a Monday night, but don't be shy about refreshments. Come on in and tell us what your choice is tonight. We're talking Michigan State football, basketball, recruiting, things like that. Took last week off a little bit because all those basketball games were you had Monday, you had a holiday, you had Thursday, going into Sunday. Now Michigan State has 3 days before they play basketball again on Thursday night in the Breslin Center against Iowa. The Hawkeyes coming in to visit. Michigan State getting a much-needed 3-day prep this week after 6 straight games of 2-day preps. You've heard that ad nauseum. You've heard it over and over and over. I heard Matt Painter complaining about it a little bit as to why they couldn't pull away from Maryland. He said it's not an excuse, but 3 games in 7 days. That's one of the reasons they had some trouble with the Terrapins. Coaches have to say that it's not an excuse, but it is an explanation as to why some guys might not be firing on all cylinders. I think it hurt Michigan State. Definitely hurt Michigan State against Indiana on Sunday. Indiana played well. They're rounding into form pretty well. Indiana is. They've got some good individuals, and they're playing well as a team. I thought it hurt Joey Hauser on the boards. Joey Hauser had rebounds, double-figure rebounds, like 4 straight games. Now he's had 3 straight games with 6 or fewer. I don't have the exact numbers on that, but it's something like that. I remember putting that into Conan Dyke's story yesterday, his 3 and out after the Michigan State loss to Indiana. But 6 games in 16 days. I mean, NBA teams don't have to do that. That's a vigorous schedule. And then you throw Tyson Walker with the stomach virus in Michigan State. Played well, scrapped well. They executed really well in the first half. Looked good in a lot of ways. Individuals improving. Akins improving. Kohler improving. You look at what Walker did against Purdue. As good as he was last year at times, as good as he's been this year, that was the best he's played in a Spartan uniform on Monday. You take that Tyson Walker. And that's a Tyson Walker that last year, this time, we were talking about a kid who seemed to shy away from looking for his shot, wanted to become a distributor, wanted to become part of the team. Now is more of a 2-guard. Tyson Walker's looking for his shot more, and he's launching it when he's open. You rarely see Tyson Walker take a bad shot. He's a weapon. Was not at his best Sunday against Indiana, but he's a weapon. Hogard, weapon. Not at his best fuel-wise in that game. Hey, Thursday night against Rutgers, very good victory for Michigan State against Rutgers. Michigan State was a team that needed it more, wanted it more, and it showed. Rutgers is a good team, but Michigan State outwilled them on that night. But A.J. Hogard, during timeouts, had the massager gun out on his calves. So Hogard not quite at his best the last 2 games. Get him rested, he'll be fine. Kohler showing me something. Kohler against Rutgers in the first half against Indiana. We're never really sure what a freshman's going to do, what he's going to look like. Halfway through the season, he's a good player. He's got some skill. Started losing some playing time to Carson Cooper. Started to wonder, is that all we're going to see of Kohler? Is Kohler going to flatline now? Nothing against him if he did, but that's not the case. He's done anything but flatline. Showed some great offensive skill against Rutgers. Great offensive skill at times against Indiana. Trouble on defense, especially late in the game. That's when Trace Jackson Davis came in, scored 3 late buckets. Kohler had trouble with him. But the help defense, I think Michigan State was kind of a broken team by then. At that point in the game, 3 minutes to go. Trace Jackson Davis scores 3 late buckets, 2 of them against Kohler. And but like I said, Michigan State was kind of on the mat at that time by then. Trace Jackson Davis scores 31 points, but with 3 minutes to go, he was 7 out of 17 from the field. Michigan State will take that all day long. He hurt them with the pass and the extra pass. Indiana with good structure, finding the open man, the weak man for 3-pointers or drive and dunk like Cobb did with about 4 minutes to go. Indiana did a good job adjusting to the way Michigan State tried to play it. Michigan State went cold on offense. But overall, I liked what Michigan State did. And I wrote something in SpartanMag.com today. Might freak some people out, I don't know. My views on Michigan State's ceiling basketball this year, I think they've got a higher ceiling now than I would have thought before the Indiana game and before the Rutgers game. And that includes a 13-point loss. Why? Well, Akins. We knew he was going to be good. We're starting to see just how good he can be. 15 points against Indiana. Dynamic with his shooting. What's he, 46% from three-point range now? That steal, drive, soaring dunk, you're starting to see him get all of his body control back, all of his jets back. What's he going to look like in the last month and a half of the season? We don't really know. Excellent talent, high ceiling. And if Malik Hall, this is all predicated on Malik Hall coming back. Malik Hall comes back, it'll take a few weeks to get back in order. If you're a Michigan State fan, you have to hope that it's not a recurring injury, or it's not an injury that will be debilitating for him the rest of the year. I'm talking about a Malik Hall at his ceiling, which we've not seen all season. If he can get to that, add this to the team, move Akins to the bench, coming off the bench, this team gets a lot stronger. Then Pierre Brooks doesn't have to play as much, if at all, 2 minutes a half, until and unless he can get his game straightened out, and the whole team gets better. The rising tide it's going to lift all ships. Kohler, can he get better on defense? Sissoko, can he do more on offense? I think he can. They sent it down low to Sissoko, third possession of the game, looked really good, right hook. Later in the first half, went down low to him. He dribbled to his right shoulder, shuffled into the traffic, kind of forced one. He should have kicked that one back out. Very few post entries to Sissoko. Most of Michigan State's offense, ball reversal, big man comes out, ball screen, everything comes off the ball screen roll, which is effective. But if I know Izzo, I suspect they're going to start working in some more low post touches. Not like they're going to do it all the time, but a few here and there. Sissoko score down low. He's not a great free throw shooter. Get him to the free throw line, draw some fouls. We've not seen him get it in the post and pass. I'm not sure he cannot do it, but we've not seen him try to do it. I've not even seen that in practice a whole lot. But when you watch Indiana and with their talent, it makes sense how much they feed the post. Their offense begins low post entry, sometimes high post entry to Trace Jackson Davis, one of the best players in the country, understandably so. Michigan State, everything starts with the ball screen. Everyone in the country is doing ball screens. But the Indiana-Michigan State game was interesting. Two teams that begin their offense completely different ways. One is ball screen, ball screen, ball screen. The other one, old school, entry, entry, entry. We can talk about the way Michigan State played the post-entry defense and what that means for the rest of the season. We can talk about a few other things. I think our buddy Nils Deco, formerly of the Longhorn, or the Horn in Austin, Texas, I think he's going to be calling a little bit later. I think we're going to have Jason Killip talk a little bit of basketball recruiting also. If you don't know what this nonsense is and you're just joining us, my name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Been the publisher of SpartanMag.com since the beginning of the internet. Also publisher of Spartan Magazine, which is no longer in print, no longer in existence, but we appreciate those of you that were subscribers to the old print version that have come over to SpartanMag.com. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel. We'd appreciate that. And go give SpartanMag.com a trial run. $1, $1 American dollar, and you can become a Spartan Mag member all the way until August 31st to see what all the nonsense is about. We think you'll like it. $1, try it. You will like it. Over at the Underground Bunker message board, which is the forum over at SpartanMag.com, I invited Michigan State fans to post questions. We will be fielding those questions mailbag style. As far as news goes, no big news to report. The commitment tonight from a walk-on offensive lineman that's over on the bunker that just came in. I don't have the particulars on that. Recruiting visits taking place. Philip Davis visited last weekend, defensive back from Lake Wales, Florida. Sleeper type of guy with MAC offers. Good size on him at 6'3", 6'2". Michigan State looking at him as a corner and a safety. Played for a state championship team this year in Lake Wales. I've not looked at his film yet. Visited last weekend. We will talk with Jason Killip. We're supposed to here shortly to get a little bit more information on that. Here he is now.
Call from
Jason Killip.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
All right, let's bring in SpartanMag.com recruiting anchor Jason Killip. He's done a great job covering Michigan State recruiting for SpartanMag.com for a number of years now, doing a great job chasing everything down. Michigan State recruiting, top 25 class. 15 high school players signed in December. Late signing period coming in February. Michigan State still in on small handful of players, including Philip Davis, the guy I just mentioned a minute ago, defensive back from Lake Wales, Florida. Jason Killip, I think, spoke with Philip Davis or communicated with him earlier today. He's got a story preparing over for SpartanMag.com, if I'm not mistaken. Jason Killip, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking some time out tonight. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Jim. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, Philip Davis, I spoke with you a couple seconds ago just before we went on the air. You spoke with Philip Davis, am I correct? A defensive back from Lake Wales. He visited Michigan State last weekend. You spoke with him or you communicated with him?
Yeah, and that article just became live on SpartanMag.com. It was a really fun article to write with Philip Davis, picking up his Michigan State offer in early January. That was his first scholarship, first Power 5 offer, with Toledo offering him in the summer. And talking with him, and he was ready to pick a school for something outside of football. He wanted to study to be a lawyer or a doctor, and he was getting ready to pick a school to pursue his academic career when Michigan State offered him. And he was obviously really excited about that offer. So that'll be one to watch as signing day comes around, and if Michigan State might be the only hat on the table, so the writing could be on the wall unless another school comes in late for him. But interesting story, and it was a fun one to write.
And Michigan State offered him when?
January 3rd.
January 3rd. And he had offers from Toledo and some other MAC schools or something like that?
Just Toledo. That came in June.
All right, so this is interesting. This is a late bloomer, a classic late bloomer, a guy that was falling between the cracks, obviously. He was, as Jason wrote and mentioned, he's looking to do other things other than football. Michigan State came in late. So this is a pure evaluation play for Michigan State. No one else in on him. You talked to him, I did not, but when I've spoken to recruits like this, that part of the job in terms of covering recruiting never gets old. When you talk to a player who all of a sudden has a different tunnel, a different path to their future that they were not anticipating, whether it be a scholarship offer that they might get at camp or just anytime the scholarship offer comes through, it's like you are interviewing someone who just won the Showcase Showdown or something. I mean, it's a great thing. So he's pretty fired up, I would imagine. What did he think of the visit?
Yeah, well, just to your point, even he said he got a call from his coach at 8 a.m. saying Michigan State had offered him and that he was going to get a call from the coaching staff soon. And he said since it was early in the morning, he thought he was still dreaming. And so it was just something that he thought was really cool. Obviously, like you said, he was excited, and he did enjoy his visit a lot. He was really impressed by the campus and the size of the university, and a lot of things at Michigan State really impressed him. Mel Tucker was not on campus this weekend for the official visitors, which I learned when talking with Davis. He had to deal with personal matters outside of campus, but Harlan Barnett did a really good job connecting with Davis over the weekend. They have grown a really strong bond this month, and he learned a lot about Mel Tucker's background through Barnett being a defensive back. So he did not meet Tucker this weekend, and so that means four-star offensive tackle Tim Diono, who visited this weekend, probably did not meet Tucker as well. So that's just an interesting note to throw out there.
I know that Tucker was down in Beaufort, Georgia, I think last week, doing some recruiting. Interesting that it was not on campus now. I mean, he can circle back and pay in-home visits. The old school January in-home visits, the way it used to be, Tucker can get in there and meet with those guys on an in-home basis in the coming days or weeks. Have you heard anything about Tucker with other visits elsewhere on the recruiting trail this week or this month?
As the class turns over, like you said, he was down in Beaufort, and as they turned to look to the 2024 class, he was visiting in Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, four-star quarterback Jake Merklinger, a guy Michigan State's been after for a long time. He's made multiple trips to campus. So I saw him. He definitely made his rounds down in Georgia, and he was visiting some of the signees for in-homes even after signing day there. But clearly there was a personal matter that must have came up, which is why he was not on campus. And obviously Davis didn't go into specifics on that.
Okay.
But something like that.
I'm sure they told Davis what was going on, but if it's secret, it's secret. Mel Tucker might mention it to us at some point, sometime. But for now, that's the case of what's going on. So Philip Davis, what did he say that Michigan State coaches like about him? Did you get into that at all?
Yeah, he talked about his length. Barnett really likes his length, and how he uses his length and his wingspan. And he mentioned that Michigan State coaches told him that they were shocked that they were evaluating a kid with no offers when Barnett put on the tape for the rest of the defensive staff. Everyone was trying to figure out how there was no schools after him. But yeah, they said they really like his length and the way he uses his length and to position himself. They said that there's a room for freshman defensive backs to make their way to the field this next coming season. So that's what impressed him about their pitch.
I would agree with that 100%, that freshmen can make an impact at the corner position for Michigan State this year, graduating some of those transfers that are moving on. That's one reason why I think Chance Rucker, no pun intended, has the best chance to play early, one of the best chances to play early of the incoming recruits. Interestingly, Michigan State's in on Philip Davis now. So you said they had an offer from Toledo, but he was thinking about not going into football. Did I hear you correctly? He was thinking about going into school for something else and not accept that Toledo offer. Is that the way I heard that right? Is that right?
Yeah, so the Toledo offer came in June, and I'm not sure how hard even Toledo was recruiting him up to this point. He had never visited Toledo, so I take that as he was not really considering them very heavily. He told me he was looking into going to school to be a doctor or a lawyer. He didn't specify which schools, but he said that he was looking around Florida. So there's plenty of schools down in Florida where you could be a very successful doctor and lawyer. And he said that's something that he still would want to pursue, one of those careers after football, if football didn't work out the way he wanted it to, or if he just had extra time afterwards, I guess. But he's a driven kid, that was for sure from talking to him.
I'm trying to think. That's happened once or twice before. You know, one of D'Antonio's last classes, they brought in a defensive back, or maybe it was a wide receiver. I'm trying to think. I'd have to look at the names. But they brought in somebody on the 11th hour. But that was like signing day, 11th hour. This one is a lot more times going into this one. But once in a while, you'll see somebody that becomes a college football player that maybe was already planning to do something else. I'm trying to think who that was. I'd have to look at the 2019. I've got to look it up right now, just the way my brain works. I've got to get it out of my head to figure out who it was. What are your thoughts about him? And I would assume, is Michigan State at this point going after him, full blast? Have you been able to detect that? Or is he a committable offer now? Where do you think Michigan State is on this in terms of their level of aggressiveness?
From talking with him, I mean, obviously he's going to have a little bit of a more biased perspective, but the way he described his meeting with Harlan Barnett, and what Harlan Barnett was telling him, like I quoted in the article, just that there's room for freshman defensive backs to play on day one, and that they were shocked that he had no offers, and they really liked his length and stuff like that. I think that hints to him being a for sure take, especially taking an official visit this late in the process. I think for sure that he would be a take right now, and that's my read on things. And another interesting note with that is when On3 first scouted, I'd have to look it up just to make sure I have the right number, but they just scouted Davis for the first time and gave him a ranking, which was a 3-star number 90 quarterback in the country, which is pretty good ranking for his first one, and 10 spots lower than Eddie Pleasant, who Michigan State's had committed since he's the 80th rated cornerback.
All right, so On3 has Philip Davis, number 90 player in Florida, also 3-star. I give On3 credit for doing some work and getting a baseline in on him. He's unranked everywhere else. This is a classic sleeper. You don't see sleepers like this anymore. Jason, back when I started covering recruiting back in the 80s, 90s, and way back then, and even into the 2000s, there would be, Michigan State would sign a class of 24 players, and 4 or 5 or 6 would be unranked, like not on the radar, because there weren't many radars. Back then, there's like before the internet, you'd have Tom Lemming would have his rankings. Alan Wallace with Super Prep would have his rankings. There was a National Recruiting Advisor. There's Blue Chips Illustrated, Max Empfinger out of Texas. And that was about it. So if somebody wasn't ranked nationally or regionally by any of those guys, they were unranked. There's a tight end named Messman, right? That's 2024. Is that right?
Yeah, Dylan.
Yeah, his dad, Joel Messman, was a tight end, I think, and he was an in-state unranked guy. I think Messman might have committed like in the summer, like before the publications came out, and was unranked. So it was different back then. But to have someone like this off the recruiting radar, truly unranked, to be recruited by a Power 5 school like Michigan State is noteworthy. And it's Michigan State doing some evaluation and leaning on it heavily. What did he think of his visit?
Oh, he really enjoyed the visit. Like I said, he was really impressed by the size of the campus and just the overall size of the magnitude of the offer.
Sure.
As far as I told him, Dad didn't visit Toledo, and that was his only offer. If I talk to him again, I will have to ask him if he took any other campus visits, because he could have visited not offered him. But he definitely glowed about the visit. Of course, he got a chance to see the facilities and the facilities that are under construction and the presentation of what they're going to look like. He really liked that. And they had a replica of the locker room set up with like the chairs and the setup for what the locker rooms are going to look like. So they had a replica for the recruits to check that out, which I think that's pretty new. As far as I know, I hadn't heard about that. I know the recruits had been watching video and doing virtual reality of the facilities, but to have like an actual replica, that was new to me. And Davis really impressed by the facilities, of course.
And, I like the idea of Michigan State bringing in more high school players. They've got 15 signed right now. If he becomes 16, if the offensive lineman becomes 17, that's going to be difficult to bring him in. But it's kind of hard to evaluate how programs are built and sustained and how roster management goes in this era of transfer portal madness. As Michigan State looks to build and rebuild, and I do think they've had to take a step back and rebuild. And that's not. There's no great shame in that. I remember when Mark D'Antonio was building his program, they had a good first year, pretty good second year, and he said sometimes you have to take a step backward before you take a step forward. D'Antonio did it. Tucker this past year with all the injuries, 5-7. This year the roster, it's not quite what it was 2 years ago, I don't think, but it just seems to me that you'd want to build for the long haul with more high school players. 15 seemed like a low number to me, although that's a 15 high quality. All 15 of those guys, you look at the film and you can understand why Michigan State was going after those guys. And those 15, that's why Michigan State is the top 25 class. The individual talent of those 15 players is strong. Would Michigan State have signed 19 if they could have gotten 4 more like those 15? Yes. But they weren't going to take any reaches on anybody. That's what Mel Tucker told me. We're not taking a reach on anybody. We'll take the players that we like. That's it. And fill the rest in out of the portal. They've got 1 or 2 or 3 slots remaining. I don't know what the exact math is right now. Philip Davis, they're going after him like you mentioned. I have to believe he's going to become a Spartan. If Michigan State's going after him full blast and they want him, the kid, I assume he's going to go ahead and take that offer, and he'll be part of this class. 3-star in the On3 rankings. Adds another one. I assume that Michigan State's number 22 ranking won't budge, but really interesting that Michigan State's going after him. Now, I looked up the other player that this would be similar to. I remember it was 2017, coming down to the wire, Michigan State sent a national letter of intent to Larice Nelson, wide receiver from Plantation, Florida. Michigan State was in on some others. Some other guys fell through, and they offered him. And Larice Nelson seriously had no other offers at the time. Came in and became somebody that Brian Lewerke ended up liking quite a bit. Got in the field a little bit here and there, made some contributions, and I'm not sure he finished all 4 years, but he was a small receiver at 5'8". But that's the last time I can remember another guy that happened to be from Florida, that seriously was ready to retire from football after high school, and at the 11th hour got a scholarship offer, and he was very excited to come up here and get to work. I assume that'll be the case with Philip Davis. Larice Nelson was small at 5'9", had some good quickness, but it's not like he had blinding speed. So if you're small and just have good speed, he was a workout freak and he had good agility and hands and all that. That's why Michigan State took him, and he ended up showing that he could play at the Big Ten level. Difference here is Philip Davis has a frame that I would have thought that more universities would have been interested in. You sent me some video. I've not had a chance to go through it. I've looked at it a little bit, but he was on a state championship team, so it's all the more surprising as to how he fell through the cracks. I'd be interested to hear what his high school coach has to say, and we'll be looking into that, I'm sure, as we move forward. Now, as far as last week's visitor, last week also visiting Jim Diono from Dundalk, Maryland. 6'6", 270. He's a 4-star, originally committed to Old Dominion, I believe. He visited Rutgers in December, visited Michigan State last weekend, Penn State the weekend before that. He'll be visiting Mississippi this weekend. He's risen up in the rankings. Right now he's number 6 in the state of Maryland by On3. State champion in the discus and the shot last spring. He's number 10 in Maryland in the On3 consensus, but number 6 in Maryland by On3 in particular. So he visited Michigan State this past weekend. I think that was last weekend or this past weekend. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. You hearing anything about how that visit went, and what are the smoke signals coming out of the Tim Diono recruitment right now? 4-star, late blooming, late 4-star guy, meaning he hit as they re-ranked him coming out of his senior film, he moved into 4-star status. 4-star. Any chance Michigan State can add another 4-star to this class in the person of Tim Diono? What are you hearing on this one?
Yeah, and he had a lot different of a blow-up story, but kind of similar in a way where he, right before the first early signing day, he, like you said, he was committed to Old Dominion, and he started to receive some big-time offers, including Penn State. And he decommitted from Old Dominion, and Michigan State later became involved. And after he narrowed down his offers, he narrowed his schools down to Penn State, Michigan State, and Ole Miss, Mississippi, he visited Penn State last weekend, Penn State the weekend of January 14th, Michigan State last weekend, and he'll visit Mississippi next weekend. Penn State's going to be the main competitor in this recruitment, I believe, unless Ole Miss knocks things out of the park next weekend. I think and after he Penn State are the top two. Narrowed down his offers, it's going to be hard to beat.
Who do you think? I'm sorry. Who do you think is going to be hard to beat?
Penn State.
What did you hear about that visit?
I didn't hear anything from him himself about the Penn State visit, but the word from other reporters was that it went very well. On3 has an article about his Penn State visit, and just Penn State recruits his area very well. And they're going to be a major force going down the stretch. They recruit the whole DMV well, but especially his area. And we haven't spoken since he's got off campus for a long form interview. We were supposed to tonight, but he had school and we just weren't able to catch up. I'm hoping that we will tomorrow. But the initial returns over text, he was telling me it was very well. He has a very good relationship with Coach Cap, Chris Kapilvic. Mm-hmm. And before the visit, that was something that made him really want to visit. What put Michigan State in the top 3 was that relationship, which got stronger over the weekend. Mm-hmm. And he told me that went very well, but hopefully we can connect tomorrow for a longer form update. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's tough to recruit against Penn State right now. They've got it rolling pretty well. If Michigan State does not get any indications that they're in on any others offensive line targets right now for high school 2023? I've not detected anything. Have you?
I have not for the most part, but there is a unsigned kid from Massachusetts named John Mold who's currently committed to Harvard. He did not sign with Harvard in the early signing period. I'm not sure if that was an academic thing or if that was due to his Michigan State interest, but I do know right around the early signing period, Michigan State had begun reaching out to him. It hasn't progressed into an offer, of course. He told me that on January 15th, he told me that Kapilvic was going to come to his school that week. So Kapilvic should have been out there last week, which he did go visit Tim Diono in Massachusetts. So he probably stopped in to see Mold as well. Like I said, there's no offer there, but I could see that popping up. It would have to pop up soon, of course, with signing day coming around the corner, but that's just another plain guy on the radar. And I could see Michigan State, if they don't sign another offensive lineman, waiting till the spring and trying the transfer portal route. But I don't know if there will be anything there, and it's a very unpredictable thing to try to go off of right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had 2 questions in the mailbag, and you pretty much just answered both of those. One question from a person named 2112 fan for Parts Unknown. 2112. If you don't know Jason, that's an old album by Rush in the early 80s. I'm sure you don't know what that's about. But anyway, he says, are Ono and Davis the last 2023 high school prospects that Michigan State is trying to get? Will Michigan State get both of them? How many more portal players do we get? Any positions stick out? All right, that's a lot. We've kind of got into that a little bit. Penn State's going to be hard to beat for Ono. Michigan State, have to believe, is going to get Davis. So that would give Michigan State 16 high school prospects. He asked, do we get both? I'm thinking get one, they don't get the other. And how many more portal players does Michigan State get? I think that, you could answer this as well, but I think you're going to see 2 or 3 more Michigan State players at least enter the portal after spring football. And that'll open some things up, and you get into the next round of transfers. I think Michigan State will be looking around. If they see somebody they like, they'll go after it. They tried to add a safety from the portal in December. That fell through. I think they'll be back in the market for a safety again in the spring. What are your thoughts on that, Jason? What do you think we'll see in the spring?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what the coaching staff strategy is, in a way, is to let things kind of settle and at their school and in other programs across the country. And then you can kind of reset the board as far as the transfer portal goes. As far as now, can't detect any transfer portal targets unless they're keeping them very secret, which is definitely a possibility. That does happen in the portal sometimes, but I don't think they are. And it's usually when they're targeting someone in the portal, they're targeting a position group where there might be 1 or 2 or 3 guys that pop up, and it's just, so far there hasn't been like a position group where we're seeing that there's a rate, like things popping on the radar behind the scenes. And like you said, I think that safety's the spot, maybe offensive line, where there could be attrition coming out of Michigan State in the fall, which opens up spots for them to go back in the portal. And like I said, kind of maybe reset their board, because there could be new entrants by then or departures from the program. So that'll be a whole new recruiting season kind of thing. Once I'd have to look up the calendar once it opens back up again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's in May, and I think Michigan State will be busy there, and it'll be interesting to see what they do here. We also had a question from Bullfrog from Parts Unknown. He says, what might be the amount of high school kids and portal kids that Michigan State will take in 2023? Any idea what the ratio between the two might be and what positions they will prioritize? Well, that's pretty much done at this point. 15 high school players, like I said. I think Phil Davis will be number 16. The number of portal transfers, I don't know the exact number. It's 10, 12, 13, something like that. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. Stout always asks me that every week, and I never know what the number is. Some of those are athletic scholarship guys. Some, as far as we can detect, are like in-state NIL, massaging the numbers a little bit. And it's a healthy number. It's 12 or 13, I think. And On3 ranks Michigan State's incoming portal class, I think, number 5 in the country, for what that's worth. So the ratio you're looking, I think, is going to end up being like 16 to 12, which I think is heavy for portal, just my taste. I'm not saying it's wrong. It makes me wonder. Like I said, I'm not an expert on how rosters are managed and constructed and developed in this new age of college football. I'm not sure anyone is. It's brand new. It's a different way to do it. We just saw TCU have a lot of success with it this year, Michigan State success the year before. I think Michigan State would like to have, like I said, they signed 15 excellent prospects. I think Michigan State would have liked to have signed 20 or 21 excellent high school prospects and gone that way. But there's a certain type of player they're looking to bring in. We'll see how it all turns out. They lost a couple defensive tackles. Deshaun Mallory, Jalen Hunt, still looking to hook up, I think. I think Hunt is still out there. Some guys, Mallory moved to defensive end. Hunt had some good moments here and there, but it was kind of hard to keep his pilot light lit, like I said, all off season. Was there a little bit of losing of patience there a little bit? Maybe. But, Michigan State goes out and they get Dre Butler from Liberty. They get the Jackson kid from Florida State. And Tumise Adeleye is 6'4", 285, 290 defensive end. They're going to put him at defensive end initially, but he has the size to play defensive tackle theoretically. He's played a few games at A&M. He's a former 5-star borderline recruit. Jackson, I watched him a little bit. He's a big guy. I mean, it looks okay, but these are new guys that have not been in the system, not been in the program. So when you're talking about establishing a culture and putting players through a process and the standard, that's hard to do when a guy is on campus for 9 months before playing his first game, whereas the other two guys have been part of the program for 3 or 4 years, the Mel Tucker program. But that's a trade I think Michigan State was willing to make. We'll have to wait and see how it all pans out. I don't know. It's hard to evaluate. It's different, and we'll see what happens from there. Now, Jason, I'll let you go now, but as far as visits this weekend, it's heavy on 2024s. What's going on with David Stone? He was at that. I should have mentioned this earlier. I buried the lead. This is called burying the lead in journalism class. This would be a failure. David Stone is the big recruiting name right now. Philip Davis is interesting because he just visited and probably on commitment watch right now. But David Stone is the big. He's the big prize in the woods right now, hunting for recruits. David Stone, 5-star defensive tackle, 2024. Tell me about David Stone. He was at Michigan State last weekend. He's coming back this weekend. I think you wrote, or Chad Simmons did. He's bringing his mother with him. Tell us who David Stone is, why Michigan State fans should be concerned, who else is in on him, what's going on with David Stone?
Yeah, David Stone is a very important recruit for Michigan State in the 2024 class just because of the excitement that he draws from the fan base. And he's an excellent player, number 1 defensive tackle in the country by On3, number 9 overall recruit, all around 5-star, no matter what site you're looking at, I believe. And he's out of IMG Academy, but originally from Oklahoma. And we've gotten into the connections there, but Michigan State has a strong connection with trainer Sean Cooper, who Stone worked with while he was growing up while living in Oklahoma. And he's still close with the C4 Sports Performance Program, which produces recruits in almost every class. Xavier Sims is another 4-star who trains with that program. But Stone has a strong relationship with that program, and so does Michigan State. But it's a lot deeper than that. Stone's close with Mel Tucker, of course. Mel Tucker has a kid that goes to IMG, and there's a connection there. And Michigan State has drawn really good rave reviews from Stone every time he's visited campus. He visited in the summer, then he visited in the fall for the Wisconsin game, homecoming, and then he visited again over the weekend. And then now he'll be back up next weekend. Like you said, he's bringing his mom this time. And that's a huge visit for Michigan State to secure heading into the dead period in February. He was deciding between Michigan State and Texas A&M to get that visit. And so Michigan State will be able to secure some more momentum going into a month-long dead period.
In the On3 consensus, the number 9 player in the country, like you said, the number 1 defensive lineman in the country, 6'4", 270, IMG Academy, originally from Oklahoma City. Michigan State's been in on him for a long time. He's been impressed with Michigan State for a long time. He had, has he worked with BT Jordan in the past, Michigan State's pass rush coach? Is that part of the connection?
Well, that's the connection to C4 Sports is where Brandon Jordan and Sean Cooper, the head trainer there, shared the same agent when they were playing. So they've known each other for like 10 plus years. And Jordan, when he was still a pass rush specialist down in Texas training with recruits and NFL players and college players, he would travel up to C4 Sports and just work out with them. So I think that Stone and him may have crossed paths there. Maybe not, but either way, Stone was aware of him. Before he was hired to Michigan State, he was well aware of him just from his online presence and stopping through C4 at times and being close with Cooper.
Yeah, as you know, Michigan State's been recruiting him for a long time. Like you mentioned, he's been to campus a number of times. This guy from Oklahoma going to IMG, highly, highly ranked defensive lineman, defensive tackle. When Michigan State was recruiting him and I heard Michigan State was doing well with him, I was always like, okay, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, just having covered Michigan State recruiting for 30 years. But this is this is a next level type of recruit, a new age recruit as far as Michigan State's recruiting tastes and standards go. This is the type of guy, quite frankly, Michigan State wouldn't have had a chance to get 10, 15, 20 years ago. This type of guy, Mel Tucker, fully intended to chase down and try to get when taking over this program. Marco Coleman moves on to Georgia Tech. I know Coleman had a pretty good relationship with Stone previously when they recruited him. What did that do to it? And I know Kevin Vickerson, when Stone's been on campus, Vickerson's been a resource there also. I assume he's waiting to see what Michigan State's doing with the defensive line coach hiring. What are you hearing on that whole thing and the impact that would have with David Stone at this point?
No doubt. And some of the things that I've said in the past is and most readers who have followed the David Stone recruitment will know, is he's not afraid to speak his mind, and he's honest about a lot of things. And when Marco Coleman moved on, one of the things that he told me was that he was planning on committing to Michigan State, and his relationship with Coleman was the reason why. And you can take that as what it's worth, because there's been a lot of momentum switches in this recruitment. I'm sure there's a lot of times where in his mind he was really close to committing to Oklahoma. But it is a big news that, I mean, in his mind, he was close to committing to Michigan State when that happened. And it's something worth noting, and he was okay with putting that on the record. And so it's something worth noting, and I think there'll be more twists and turns, like I've said before. But that's kind of what makes this visit so important, is because he was deciding between Michigan State and Texas A&M. And Texas A&M is a school that I could see really switching the momentum in the recruitment with just one visit. He could visit them and then go into a month-long dead period where he really likes Texas A&M. And Michigan State was able to avoid that. And one of the things that's impressive was he had a poll on his Instagram story asking fans where he should go, and the Michigan State fans won the poll 91% to 9, and with 1,481 votes to 144.
That surprises me a little bit. I mean, I'm not surprised that Michigan State fans went after him like that and showed their love for him. I'm surprised other schools didn't step up and do that. A&M's chiefly among them. That's interesting. You're talking about a top 10, a number one defensive lineman in the country, type of guy that's, paved the way to Georgia's and Alabama's in the past. Michigan State's right in there to get this. They've been in the hunt for a long time, and he's visited how many times?
I believe this will be his fourth, because he visited in the summer, and then he visited for the homecoming game against Wisconsin in the fall, then over the weekend of January 14th, and now this next weekend.
And is this the first time he's bringing his mother to Michigan State?
His second. His mother came for the Wisconsin game. And his father's supposed to come to this one as well, and I'm not sure which visits his father came on, or if any. That's something that I can ask his father once he confirms that he's coming or not.
I mean, Michigan State they can be strong in the NIL department when they want to be. Whether or not they can spend with A&M remains to be seen. How many players does A&M really go after at this level? I don't know. But this is the type of guy that Michigan State's they've gone red carpet for this guy in every way. And it's resonating. And he's visiting again. And Chad Simmons for On3.com had a story today, and it's published over at On3.com, and you can find it over at SpartanMag.com if you're a subscriber. Pay $1. You can read it. You'll be a subscriber. Your subscription will carry you through August 31st. Quote that Chad Simmons had from David Stone today, talking about bringing his mother to campus to East Lansing this weekend. Second straight week, right? To reiterate, David Stone was here last weekend. He's coming back this weekend, right? 2 straight weekends? Is that right? Okay. Quote from David Stone, quote, "I want her to see everything and see what I like about Michigan State. She needs to see what the atmosphere is like, what the academics are like, how they have campus security and things like that. She needs to see all the things moms think are important. That is what the plan is for this weekend." And what does he like about Michigan State? Quote, "It just has that home feeling. It is like family at Michigan State. The vibe with the coaches and the players really stands out to me," unquote. So those are some things we've heard for ages about what recruits like about specific schools that they choose. And these are things that are resonating for him on behalf of Michigan State. So any way you slice it, Michigan State's done a great job recruiting him, even through the coaching change at the defensive line position, which a lot of us thought was going to be culminated, be finalized, 4 or 5 days ago, but I'm hearing that is still going on. And I've got some questions in the mailbag that I'll get to a little bit later. I mean, that thing is still in the hopper. But in the meantime, David Stone is impressed with the program from the top down, beginning with the head coach. And we'll have to wait and see what happens there. It's a difficult one to read. And, you heard this 2 or 3 months ago. Probably you've had contact with David Stone. It looked like Michigan State was in really good shape to get him. Not quite a silent commitment. Maybe he was, but Michigan State was very confident with him at that point. For what it's worth, 12 months out. Now it's, 10 months out until he has to sign. So if Michigan State continues to do well with him, even gets a commitment, there will still be a lot of work to do to get a signature for him in December, I would think. But no question, Michigan State has impressed him to this point, and it would help Michigan State if they can go out and have a good, solid, strong season in the fall. But Michigan State, and on David Stone, theoretically, arguably, the number one defensive lineman in the country. Michigan State's been on some big defensive linemen, highly ranked defensive linemen in the past, usually from the city of Detroit or nearby. To go outside the radius and strike a chord with him in this manner is impressive. And if and when Michigan State can ever string together seasons like they had 2 years ago when they went 11-2, if they can do that on a continuous basis, this is the type of player Michigan State can get in on more frequently, and not just once in a recruiting cycle, but 5 or 10 guys like this. Well, you can't have 10 top 9 players. There's only 9 guys in the top 10, but only 9 guys in the top 9. But you get what I'm saying. This type of guy Michigan State can get in on more frequently if they can start winning in the fall again, and that's the plan. Jason, any other thoughts before we let you go?
Yeah. Well, just one more quick thing on Stone that I was thinking about that I think is definitely worth mentioning is back when, around the time of the Marco Coleman departure, Chad Simmons had another really good article on Stone's recruitment, where one of the things that he mentioned was Coleman and Stone had an agreement that Michigan State would be his last official visit, which I think was a really, really smart play by Michigan State at the moment, because like I said, this is one where the momentum shifts often, especially with schools like Oklahoma being the home state school, and where he could visit Michigan State and really enjoy it and plan to commit and then visit Oklahoma and have the same feelings. But Michigan State or Marco Coleman and Stone had an agreement for Michigan State to be his last official visit. And if Michigan State can hold true to that and stick to that plan, I think that would be really good for them. As in this spring, he already announced that he's going to visit Miami, Texas A&M, and he's working on dates for Florida State, Wisconsin, LSU, and Ohio State. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the 2 visits right now are great, but what does it look like in July is a really good question. So for Michigan State to get the last official visit like originally planned would be huge for them. Great point, and great strategy by Marcus Coleman originally. And that's the type of thing that I've heard recruiters say in both sports, that if you're leading, you want to have the last visit if the player is dead set on taking multiple visits. If you think you're trailing, you want to visit first. That's the way some coaches look at it. So Coleman must have thought... Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say real quick for Stone is his sister attends Oklahoma. So he even said on Twitter this afternoon, he was interacting with fans on Twitter, and one of the things an Oklahoma fan said they don't feel like they're getting mentioned by him anymore. And one of the things he said is, my sister goes there in the summer. I'm there all the time, and I don't have to post it. That's another thing where his sister attends Oklahoma, and he's going to be around Oklahoma a lot. So that's another, that's the main competition, and it's something that is going to be hard to avoid when he goes back home from IMG in the summer.
Welcome to 5-star recruiting. A lot of Michigan State fans over in the bunker when Michigan State was in on some 4-stars and lost a couple 4-stars to decommitment, but Michigan State had a pretty good percentage of hanging on to 4-star commitments in the last recruiting cycle. A lot of Michigan State fans that aren't used to this are like, well, I'll just wait and see what happens, and we'll see who they sign when they sign. Whereas fans from other recruiting bases are more inclined to really get in deep, with the entire soap opera of a 5-star recruit like this, knowing that if you get a commitment, there's going to be more obstacles ahead, more visits ahead. And if this were, the fans in Georgia or Florida or Alabama, Auburn, they're in for all the twists and turns. Michigan State fans, it's new territory for them. Some might not have an appetite for it. Some are developing an appetite for it. But this is 5-star recruiting in 2023. Michigan State in the middle of it for arguably the best defensive lineman in the country for 2024. And it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. Michigan State's done well so far, coming in for a second straight week. Sometimes in recruiting, don't believe what players say, believe what they do. Well, 2 straight visits means a lot. Michigan State laying a foundation to make a run and continue their relationship with him, which potentially could just grow stronger after Michigan State makes a decision on defensive line coach. All right, Jason, I appreciate your time. Thanks for checking in with us and giving us an update on what's going on with Michigan State recruiting. You can go to SpartanMag.com and find out more about visitors that are coming in this weekend. Michigan State has a host of 24s and some 25s. Go over and become a SpartanMag.com subscriber for $1, and you can get in on the fun. You want to just mention some of the 1 or 2 or 3 of the guys coming in this weekend that Michigan State fans might be interested in? I know you had a link to those visits, and at SpartanMag.com with a nightly recruiting briefing that you posted last night, including David Stone, Tyshawn White, and some others. 2024s, you've got a list of 3 or 5 guys that are interesting ones. Any of those of particular note?
Yeah, we already mentioned Stone, but you mentioned Tyshawn White. Tyshawn White's a 4-star safety out of Buford, Georgia, which is a school Michigan State's pushing really hard. King Joseph Edwards is a defensive end from Buford, Georgia, who has shown Michigan State a lot of love. There's plenty of underclass in states recruiting at Buford, and that's going to be one. That's going to be a school that they're going to continue going after. But Tyshawn White's an interesting one. He has a lot of really good offers. 4-star offensive lineman out of Akron, Ohio, William Satterwhite will be there. He's more of an interior offensive lineman at 6'4", 290. He's got offers from Penn State, Auburn, and some other schools, but he'll be on campus, so like I said, from Akron, Ohio. And then they'll be hosting 4-star wide receiver from Tennessee, Brandon Hayward. He's got a Tennessee offer, Arkansas. He's 5'11". He's pretty speedy, out of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And then the last 2024 is 6'5", 310-pound offensive lineman, Logan Bennett of Baltimore, Maryland. He's not ranked in Michigan State, but Colorado and Boston College and Maryland are his offers right now. Cap went and saw him this month, and he'll be up at this weekend.
All right, so those are the 2024s. There's some other unoffered 2024s and some unoffered 2025s coming into Visit Michigan State this weekend. Total coverage at SpartanMag.com. Go check out Jason's great coverage over at SpartanMag.com, as well as our basketball coverage, basketball analysis, and around-the-clock discussion at the Underground Bunker message board on all things Michigan State sports, and the Final Forum, which is the best, the only basketball-only recruiting, the only basketball, Michigan State basketball forum message board over at SpartanMag.com. Get all of that for $1 through August 31st. Check it out. Jason, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your help. You have a great night, and we'll see you soon over there on the message board at SpartanMag.com. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
There he goes, Jason Killip, recruiting anchor for SpartanMag.com. We appreciate all the help and all the coverage that he provides and all the help that we get from all of our SpartanMag.com staff members. Paul Konadak, associate editor, always doing a great job. Noah Sprunger, great job as an intern behind the scenes, pulling a lot of switches, pushing a lot of buttons, doing a lot of great things in a supporting role and a writing role sometimes. Jake Laskawa, intern over at SpartanMag.com, doing a great job. Had a nice story on Jackson Kohler after the Michigan State victory over Rutgers on Thursday night. Did a great job. Wrote that story at the Breslin Center. That thing was finished before he left the arena, and there for the readers late night and also for early morning the next day. Laskawa doing a great job. Big movie, Ron Armstrong. We appreciate him as always as recruiting analyst behind the scenes. Appreciate everything he does and in front of the scenes as well. Everyone at SpartanMag.com, your subscribers, we love you guys too. Give us a like here on this channel. That helps also get the word out and helps spice up the algorithms for Spartan Mag, which helps our website and our whole news organization. All right, let's go over here to the comments area, see what we got. We have Amy Garland. That's Tyrone Garland saying sup comp. He's in first. Former linebacker for Michigan State, lives in the Chicagoland area. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of New Jersey way back in the old days. Zach Colmolden says, what's up, comp? MJ coming in from Hong Kong. Kenneth Roberts says, can I talk with you? Football first, please, says MJ. And Kenneth Roberts, one again, can I talk? Hayden Roberts says, will Michigan State beat Purdue at Purdue? I don't think so. I think it's possible. Purdue's very good. I think they're number 1 in the country. Did they move up to number 1 with Houston losing? I think they might have. I didn't check the polls today, but Purdue's good. They're not unbeatable. You saw Michigan State hang with them on Monday. That was in East Lansing. Raucous home crowd. And Tyson Walker playing, you can't play much better than that. He can't play much better than that. But Michigan State can play better as a team going forward. That'll be intriguing to see what Michigan State does if they change their post coverage in that game much. A lot of that will depend on how Purdue shoots from the perimeter last game and this next game this week. Because Purdue's not shot real well from the perimeter this year compared to recent years. And when Michigan State beat Purdue last season, Michigan State went single coverage on Edey and Williams and guarded the shooters and was willing to give up 2-point field goals. They still want the 3-point shooters to get hot. That was a better shooting Purdue team. This Purdue team, statistically, has not been a great perimeter shooting team. As a matter of fact, they struggled through December. Still, Michigan State honored those shooters as if they were good shooters because they had been hot for the previous 2.5 games. So Michigan State did not want Smith and Lawyer to beat them and the others. So a lot of single coverage, including the last play of the game. So when they play again, Michigan State will have a wider body of work to judge those shooters. And I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan State goes into that game thinking a little bit, maybe we do double team, make Edey pass, and we'll see if they can shoot. At home, they're going to shoot better. So maybe they stay in single coverage. I'm not sure. Can Michigan State beat Purdue? Yes. Will Michigan State beat Purdue? I doubt it. Just going by percentages on the road, probably not. But I think Michigan State will play well that day. Michigan State's gotten blown out at Mackey Arena a lot over the years. I suspect Michigan State will make it more competitive this time. Kenneth Roberts says, go green. Kenneth Roberts says, let me call. All right, we're going to open up the line to see what Kenneth Roberts has to say. We're going to open up this line. Even if he wants to rip me and rip everything and rip my glasses, clothing, attire, we're going to let him do it. We're going to post the number right now. I'll post the number right now. Call SpartanMag live. Right there. Boom. Where'd it go? I thought I posted it. It disappeared. Oh, here it is. Why didn't it? There it is. All right, we'll see. Well, this guy wants to call, so we're gonna see what Kenneth Roberts has to say. Problem is, I'm not going to say what the problem is. We'll wait and see if he calls. Rob South says, what's up, fellas? But starting lineup, I'm putting Tyrone Garland at the 4. He's going to be bumping in there, elbows, shoulders, all over the place. Keep an eye on him because he can get a little dirty, too. So Garland's the 4. Zach Colmolden's running the point. MJ, he's the shooting guard. Kenneth Roberts is the 3. He wants to call. He's the diva. He wants the ball. He wants all the shots. He's the 3. And then we've got Rob South down low. Rob South has run the point before us in the past, but we got him down low at the 5 right now. Hayden Roberts from Wyoming, Michigan, saying hello. Kenneth Roberts from East Lansing wants to call. Gordon Tanona's here. Hayden Roberts wants to know if he's going to get a tardy. No, I'm not handing out tardies today because I was tardy. I feel bad about that. To quote David Lee Roth, I don't feel tardy. I know that's an old joke. I apologize. Malcolm Jones Sr. checking in from Georgia. Appreciate Malcolm Jones Sr., the father of the Michigan State freshman from Lee County, Georgia, I think it is, Malcolm Jones. Big spring coming up for Malcolm Jones at the safety position. Kenneth Roberts wants to open the phones. Now, he was posting this a good half hour ago, or longer. So if he's no longer watching, I apologize about that. I think the lines are open. We've got Bill Hugen, he says, what do you make of Tucker's comments about the quarterback competition? Will Kim and Hauser have a chance? Yes, they will have a chance. And I'd heard that internally that they had an exit meeting. And, theoretically, they always say that every job is open every week, every practice. When you have a third-year returning quarterback, you might think, well, that job's not open. And they want everybody to know, oh, yes, it is open. Internally, and I assume externally now, because he mentioned that on an interview with Jack Ebling last week. I'm going over that interview. I'm going over that interview also. There's some interesting things. Maybe I can develop something a little bit more in there because there are some thought-provoking things from that interview. He doesn't mention many players specifically. A lot of it is big picture stuff, but interesting nonetheless. Anyway, he mentioned that it's a competition, and I don't think it's just lip service. I think if they like Peyton Thorne, he's okay. He's done a good job. Maybe he can get better. We'll have to wait and see. But if they have a quarterback on the roster that is better, they want to find out. And sometimes there's no better way to find out than to throw him on the field and see. Kind of like Michigan did with J.J. McCarthy. I like Peyton Thorne. I do. I think he's solid. Is there more on the roster that's better? We don't know. I mean, we can look at practice. You can look at the spring game. You can look at Noah Kim when he comes in, does a good job. I'm not sure. I'm not there every day. It's a great question, but it is a competition. Hayden Roberts says, we need you to bring the wine back, Comp. Hayden Roberts been watching a long time. He remembers, and I think I've got a bottle of Cape May still. Maybe I'll open that up next time. I'm not going to do it tonight, but it was Cape May, a vineyard in New Jersey. And a former Michigan State football player is involved in that vineyard and said that to us. And we gave him a little shout out then. I'll have to check that out again. That's a couple years ago. Thanks, Hayden, for mentioning that. YT Sparty says, so how good is a backcourt of A.J. Hoggard and Jeremy Fears? Jeremy Fears, you probably saw some of the highlights. Michigan State's committed point guard. He's gained 5-star status this week with some of the outlets. Played really well, I think, against Chicago Whitney Young this past weekend. Fears is playing in Chicagoland public school. I think it's a public school this year after last year playing at La Lumiere. And I think he was at La Lumiere for 2 years. Committed to Michigan State, went back home to play and be a teammate with his brother. And he's looking strong. He's got skill, leadership, vocal, all of it. It's going to be a very, very good point guard. And he's an Izzo-type point guard. This is really a great player for Izzo to have going forward as Izzo, looks to get another Final Four and a second national championship. He's a national championship-type point guard, I would think. He's got to stay healthy. I thought Kalen Lucas was a national championship-type point guard. Didn't stay healthy. He was tough. He was good. Kenneth Roberts, yes, he wants the wine. So Kenneth Roberts and Hayden Roberts. I wonder if those guys are related. Anyway, wine. Problem is, if I start drinking wine on the area, you don't know what I'm going to say. Plus, my enunciation, which already is not at a 3-star level, will only suffer. Gordon Sonona says, no, we don't want to hear you talk. So Gordon Sonona's saying no. But the phone lines are open. Lions 1956 says, can this Michigan State team make a run in the NCAA tournament? Yes, absolutely. Lions 1956. Absolutely. The team as it currently is, as you've seen in the last 2 weeks, no. But you don't have to play 6 games in 16 days in the NCAA tournament. I know the other teams around the country and the Big Ten have spats like this. Michigan State's had, I think, 3 spats like this season where they've crammed in a lot of games. One was their own volition. The other one was Big Ten scheduling. They've got one more later in the year. Illinois went through it last week, and that had a lot to do with getting blown out at home by Indiana. Indiana's playing good basketball right now, but Indiana had a 5-day rest, went to Champaign, and for Illinois it was 3 games, 7 days. And you saw what happened. It's a factor. It's a good way to have a C+ game. Michigan State's effort yesterday was A+ till about the last 3 or 4 minutes, and it ran off the rails, and they struggled to the finish line physically. And I think focus-wise also. I think partly because Izzo knew what was going on. And you may have noticed Izzo didn't really lash out at his guys like he normally would in a crisis situation when you're starting to lose on the road and so forth. He was understanding of what the schedule makers had put his team through. He got on Holloman a little bit here and there, trying to wake him up and do some things. I think Sissoko got on him a little bit also, but Izzo was kind of accepting of what was going on. And I think that had an impact on Michigan State with the screws getting loose in the last 3 minutes. And Trace Jackson-Davis, 3 layups in the last 3 minutes. Layup, lob, dunk, another dunk, another dunk. Ends up 20 for 10 from the field. Like I said before, that was basically garbage time at the end. Padded his stat sheet. Before that, he was 7 out of 17, which is a good day's work on defense for Michigan State up to that point. But that team for Michigan State can't go very far in the NCAA tournament. Rested, bring Malik Hall back, get him healthy. A good version of Malik Hall, not like a taped up, duct tape version of Malik Hall. A good version of Malik Hall. If he's good enough that he can move to Akins coming off the bench, that is a very, very good bench player. That's a Morris Peterson sophomore level bench player. And Izzo's not had a sophomore talent like that coming off the bench since Peterson. He's had some seniors that have been good coming off the bench, including 05 when Torbert came off the bench.
Call from
Nils.
to accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
All right, let's go down to the Lone Star State. A sage veteran, an astute observer of Michigan State sports for decades and decades and decades. Formerly of the Horn in Austin, Texas. We bring you Nils Deco. Nils, how you doing this evening down in the Lone Star State, down in Houston, Texas?
Good, Jim. How are you?
Doing really
Are you
good.
staying warm?
Yeah, I needed to get colder. We're finally down below freezing. It was 30 today. Got a little dusting of snow finally. We had a lot of snow around Christmas. Then it thawed and melted by about, December 29th or 30th. And then we had nothing but grass until yesterday. It's been depressing. 23 straight days of grass around here.
So, who counted that, you or the weatherman?
Me. So we got a little dusting of snow now. It's supposed to snow more on Wednesday, which I'm hoping for. I want to get the cross-country skis out a little bit. You know what I mean? I've been itching to do that a little bit. If it's going to be winter, by gosh, I want winter. And I want the pond frozen. I want to get out there and skate, and I want to like it. Now, I love summer. I love fall. Spring is a little bit of a tease. Once it goes full-blown spring, that's okay. But, March and April can get a little bit tedious around here. But I want a Michigan January. I want a Michigan February. I want a cold November for Thanksgiving, and I want a white Christmas, and I want 50 degrees, and I want 40 degrees crisp late October afternoon for football. I want all those seasons, Nils. You know that.
Yeah.
Michigan State lost at Indiana. You are a native of Indiana. You know basketball as well as anybody I know, Nils. I know you're probably watching that game. I've been talking a little bit about that game and these Michigan State Spartans tonight. You and I have not spoken since the Indiana game. I'm curious what you thought about that game, Michigan State at Indiana.
I mean, Trey Galloway and Tamir Bates went 8 of 9. That's
8 of 9.
That's 24 points.
8 of 9.
And that was it.
That's it.
I mean, I think Galloway's shooting like 46%, but I don't. Seemed like to me. I mean, Michigan State had to shoot, pick their poison, and they they decided to dig on Jackson Davis, and in the first half, I thought they did a really good job because he missed a lot of close-in shots. I think they did a good job bodying him up, and he probably missed 4 or 5 shots I thought that he could have had, and Michigan State could have been down 11 or 12 at halftime. But I think they were physical with him, and Tamir Bates. I mean, he hits 2 24-footers. I mean, he's a guy that I think was average. I think he's second in the Big Ten on coming off the bench in terms of points per game. I think, is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
But I mean, he played out of his mind. I mean, Indiana played out of their mind. They played well. They had a great game the other night against Illinois. I mean, right now, I think they're the hottest team. I think when we played Illinois, they were the hottest team. Mm-hmm. Now I think Indiana's the hottest team. Mm-hmm. And so it'll be interesting on February 4th. I think that's when they play Purdue to see that battle because I think Indiana. They've got those big guards. I mean, they're a bigger team. I mean, Galloway's every bit of 6'6". I think Bates is 6'4". That point guard, Stefano Hood, I think, what's he, 6'4"? I mean, they're a bigger team than you typically see in college basketball right now. And I think they started to buy into what Mike Woodson's doing. And I mean, it's a hard place to play. It always has been. No matter what, you go back to Michigan State. I think it was 2001 when Michigan State's ranked number 1, and Kirk Hastings hit that shot over Zach Randolph, and Michigan State was ranked number 1 for a week. Remember that game?
Mm-hmm. I heard Izzo talking about that this week. I don't know if that was the game or not, but one of those games when they lost at the buzzer.
Yep, but last second shot by Kirk Hastings.
And they stormed the court. And Izzo said a state trooper came out to escort Izzo off the court to safety. And Izzo looked at the state trooper and said, "What are you doing here?" And the trooper said, "I'm here to protect you and escort you off the court." And Izzo said, "Get away from me. I'm going to watch this for a minute." He leaned up against the scorer's table and just enjoyed Assembly Hall storming the court after beating Michigan State. He took it as a big compliment, but, he accepted defeat. They made the shot, but Izzo likes to sit back and enjoy the circus once in a while. Now, Illinois, by the way, Indiana, when they played at Illinois, I know it was at Illinois, and I mentioned that earlier in the show, but Indiana had 5 days off, had a 5-day prep to go to Illinois. For Illinois, it was their third game in 7 days.
I was always going to catch up with you.
up with Michigan State on Sunday. You're good for about 32 minutes, and then you don't realize, like, when Michigan State went to Illinois, Michigan State was good for about 32 minutes. On Sunday, they were good for about 30 or 32 minutes. And so all of a sudden, all that stuff, the battle of attrition and all those minutes accumulated over the last last 10 days, it catches up with you, and that's what happens. And the shots go short. You miss rebounds. You miss just simple things that you don't think would happen. They don't happen in the first half. They always happen in the second half, it seems like.
And that's what I thought Michigan State might be prone to have happening to them against Rutgers. Rutgers had gone on the road and played well against Purdue. I thought, and I was on the Tim Stout show last week, and I picked Rutgers by 10. And I thought it would follow the exact same script we saw in the Indiana game. Michigan State would play hard early and just run out of gas late, and Rutgers would just have too many veterans and too much strength and too much hop. But as it turned out, Rutgers that day was kind of scattered. Their shot selection was kind of iffy. And I don't think Rutgers had the focus and the will that they did when they went to Purdue. Quite frankly, I think that Rutgers was more fired up and focused to play at Purdue than they were to play at Michigan State. You get that big win at Purdue, and they're resting on their laurels a little bit. That's a Rutgers team that's been pretty good, that is pretty good, but not an established program that realizes you have to battle every single game. I'm sure they know that to some extent, but it was not the same focus and energy that Rutgers brought to Purdue that they brought to Michigan State. Michigan State had a very good win that night. Rutgers goes 1 out of 17 from 3. Michigan State shot well that night. But that all contributes to the random nature of college basketball. I've been saying it for a couple of years, that the word that I would apply to college basketball more than any other here recently and now is random. Just random. You just get, and people get surprised when last week, 22 of the top 25 lost last week? It's random. It's shooting dice right now. And someone posted over here in the comments section, how far or can this Michigan State team make a run in March? And I'm like, absolutely. Not the team you saw on Sunday that was worn down and didn't have Malik Hall. I'm talking about bringing Malik Hall back, getting him healthy, getting him to be the best senior version of Malik Hall that he can be, which is a better Malik Hall than we've ever seen. That version of that player does exist. I'm not talking about getting Malik Hall and, waddling him out there with duct tape, waddling around like, Fred Sanford out there trying to play basketball. I'm talking about like a good version of Malik Hall. You add this, and if you have the luxury of moving Jaden Akins to the bench as your first player off the bench, and Kohler, if he keeps coming along, and Carson Cooper's been solid, that 8-man playing group right there, you don't have to go any deeper in terms of getting into Pierre Brooks if you just go with 8. I know they'd like to have 9, but it's just not coming around right now. But that team with Tom Izzo is not a team, no matter where they're seated, not a team that anyone's going to want to play in March if Malik Hall's back playing well, and this team continues to improve. Tyson Walker's better right now than I knew 6 days ago or 8 days ago. That Purdue game really showed me something. Yeah, he showed that against Illinois last year, but Walker has really gotten a comfort level in terms of knowing when to look for his shot and getting his points without hunting points. You rarely see him take a bad shot. You'll see him miss badly once in a while. But last year, you may remember, we were talking about that's a guy that needs to shoot more. When he was playing a lot of point guard and so forth. Now he's more of an off guard, and he's very comfortable knowing where the windows are in this offense to get his shots. And he's one of just several dangerous weapons on this team, Nils, and they're all getting better. Hauser's getting better. They're all getting better. That's what's going to make Michigan State dangerous in March.
A lot more people can score the basketball than Michigan State's had in the past. Jaden Akins had the 15 points yesterday. I think he was.
Wow.
I think he hit. He has the dunk. On the steal, and then he had, I think, either 3 or 4 threes, and his shot, I think he's shooting 40% from 3 over the last play.
And he's 46% for the year, I think, from 3. And coming into the year, everybody knew he was a good athlete and all that, handled the ball pretty good. And, shot from the perimeter a little bit last year. But I was like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of expected him to be an erratic type perimeter shooter. He was an okay perimeter shooter as a recruit, right? Man, he's becoming deadly. You mix his athleticism and what he does on defense and the 3-point shooting, that is rare air for that guy. And I thought he'd be pretty good this year, but we're starting to get a glimpse that he could be like he was excellent on Sunday against Indiana. Excellent 3-point shooting, finishing.
So you think about in 30 days, what does this team look like? But you're saying Malik Hall, Jaden Akins. Remember, I don't know what he missed 4 or 5 games with the foot. He's only, like we're talking about, getting better. I mean, he could be a 15-point a game scorer along with Joey Hauser and Hogard and Tyson Walker. So you have 4 or 5 guys that can score at any time. Michigan State hasn't had that. So, there were times yesterday, Michigan State had Kohler, Carson Cooper, Holloman, and then I think maybe Tyson Walker and somebody else. But you got 3 true freshmen out there.
Late in the first half, they had Walker, the 3 freshmen, and Pierre Brooks.
Yeah, that's not – you never signed on for that start of the year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
but they're getting better. Cooper and Kohler get better every game. I mean, Cooper didn't play many minutes yesterday.
Yeah. And Cooper –
Kohler,
what Cooper did was at the Illinois game when he played more minutes than Kohler because he's got some athleticism, he's got some length, and Carson Cooper's got bigger legs than you would think. I mentioned this on the VCast last week. They spend a lot of time in the weight room. His thighs are developing, and that helps when you're playing post defense. You know that. He's a true 6'11". I mean, some of that's neck and head, but he's got reasonably long arms and moves quickly enough that he can provide some help as a defensive player, and he's just getting better at that, and he's focused, and he's a willing participant there. Akins on defense. Yesterday, about 14 minutes to go in the first half, and he did a good job with defense on a ball screen with Kohler going up and over as Jalen Hood-Schifino's driving. And Jalen Hood-Schifino, he's big time. He's going to be an NBA player. He was outstanding against Illinois. What is he, about 6'4", running the point right now? Elevates, nice shot. He's an Akins-type player, a little more muscular. Good matchup there. Initially, Tyson Walker was guarding Hood-Schifino, and Walker did a good job on him. Walker sits down. Akins guards him up and over on ball screen defense. And he goes up and over, and then he gets back to Hood-Schifino. Schifino's trying to drive, stays with him. Schifino does a spin move, fall away, and Akins is like on the ball screen, on the spin move, contests the 15-footer, front rim, misses the shot. Akins with his footwork and his length and his burst. That looked to me like 2 future NBA players going at it right there. Akins is getting his defensive chop. It is back. He's got the quickness back there. He was more active on the glass. I'm not sure it showed up in the stat sheet in terms of what his rebounding was, but I went back over the game a little bit today, and he was going to the offensive boards trying to make something happen. Akins is getting his game back, and as he does, that's another spark plug in this engine that's going to be firing well. And, hey, this game, the beginning of the Indiana game, I'm watching it, and that's where I'm thinking this ceiling is higher than I gave it credit for 10 days ago because Kohler's getting better. He's coming off the bench and delivering some nice moves. I mean, the people in Indiana had to be loving, they hated to see the guy score against the Hoosiers, but they had to have appreciated how Kohler was going to work with some old school post moves against the best shot blocker in the Big Ten, Trace Jackson-Davis, scoring a couple times. That righty hook off the glass was great, and that third up and under, back again, right hook on the other baseline. Kohler did it for Michigan State with a double-double against Rutgers also. Defense was a problem late in the game. He was tired also, and I think that's part of why the tires went flat late in the game defensively with Kohler against Trace Jackson-Davis. But Kohler, freshman coming in, everybody knew he had some skill, but I was like, well, we'll see what he is. And then I was like, man, he's not really hanging on defense. It's a quickness problem. He's gotten a little quicker lately. He missed shots earlier in the year, but you knew he had touch. And now the touch is starting to find the bottom of the basket because he's gotten a feel for the length and the quickness of the game. Now that touch is starting to show itself. If he can get a little bit better on defense, it can give you 20 minutes without giving up much defensively. It makes the team better. Your thoughts on Kohler? I mean, what about those moves? You had to appreciate those moves, right, Nils?
Well, I'm amazed at the evaluation and then the development. I mean, I just think, I was talking to my buddy who works at IMG, and he was talking about Carson Cooper, and he said, Nils, that kid, when he got there, he goes, I can't believe what he was doing against Edey the other day. He said Cooper played the best defense that he'd seen on anybody on Edey up to this point. He's a Purdue fan. And, those are 2 6'11", 6'9" guys that they're not the All-American. Cooper wasn't a top 250 kid, and I know I think Kohler was maybe a top 75 type of player. Out of the
Cooper was a no-star. Cooper was planning to go back for a 13th year at IMG this year. He was planning to just go back, and Michigan State said, no, come out right now. He was a no-star at that time.
So the evaluation, I think, has really been good. I think the development. I mean, those 2 freshmen, they get better every day. Every time they come out, they do something new they haven't done before, and I think that's really going to help in, say, the Big Ten tournament. And then as they get into the NCAA tournament, I don't know how many minutes they'll play between the 2 of them, but like you said about Kohler, I mean, you can get 15 to 18 good minutes, and he gives you 6 to 8 points and 4 to 6 rebounds, and be a plus. Then You got.
I think more. I think he's creeping into being a 20-20 guy with Sissoko, splitting dead even. And Sissoko, Michigan State scripted it. Third possession of the game, went down low to him, and he took his time and had a beautiful right-handed jump hook over Trace Jackson Davis. You saw that, right?
Yep.
And I was saying that all week on the message board. I'm like, he has a low post game. We've not seen it yet, but he's got it. I've seen it in practice, and it's kind of majestic and beautiful when he times it all up and gets, because he leaps and he's a good vertical leaper and gets good extension on that. He's got long arms. It's a nice jump hook. And you know that Izzo always likes to feed in the past, he's always liked to get post touches, established post touches, whether it's Andre Hudson or Drew Namick or whoever it is. Even if it's not productive, he likes to establish it early. I'm not surprised they scripted it early, got 2 points out of it. Later in the half, went back down to him. And like I said earlier in the show, he was going to his right shoulder from the right block into the traffic, kind of got stuck, and he should have kicked it back out, but he forced a shot in the post that didn't go in. I'm sure they'll look at the film and say, okay, they should have made a different read here. But he's a guy that still in his career has not had many post touches. Most of his scoring opportunities this year have been on putbacks or screen roll, screen slip, roll into the rim. Very infrequently is he posting up and hitting that jump hook. He's got a jump hook, and Izzo usually loves to establish those post touches. I think that's going to be coming. Hey, there was no practice today. I'm not like saying that I went to practice and saw it and I'm predicting something based on what I saw. If I had seen it in practice today, I wouldn't be able to talk about it. I've not seen it yet, but if I know Izzo and I can see Sissoko's skill, I think that's coming. Another component is coming, and it's Sissoko, low post touch, 2 or 3 a half. I'm not saying riding it like every single time, because Michigan State's having him as a ball screener is very tough is pretty good also. But the low post entry, I think, is a component that can come around, because like you're talking about, the other players, Hauser's improved so much. Magic Johnson saying he thinks he's got a chance to be a professional player. And the things he was doing early in that Indiana game, spot up 3, drive for 3, back down, counter, drive for a layup, back down, counter, just some tricky, nifty ways to get his points. Get him some more rest, because his rebounding has fallen off. Hauser's has. They've all been tired. Rebounding is where it's shown with Hauser. And last night, Hauser got pushed in the back for a couple of key putbacks during crunch, some of the pivotal moments, turning points of the game. Hauser got pushed. It could have called a foul on it. And maybe that would happen whether he's fresh or not. But he's been a good rebounder, but he got thrown around a little bit yesterday, and I think fatigue had something to do with it. Get him some rest. I think the rebounding piece will come. But here's my point. You mentioned Hauser's gotten better on offense. Hey, when Kohler's in there, same thing, good on offense. Akins has just got such a high ceiling. Making those shots, doing some things off the dribble. Overzealous with the shots sometimes. Bad shot selection once or twice against Purdue. Got to learn that a little bit more. We know what Walker can do, and Hogard can get his own shot. End of a shot clock, he might be driving into the lane, getting something. Maybe a pass for someone else. And if push comes to shove, worst comes to worst, off the dribble, shot clock down, he's going to take a 15-footer like Mateen Cleaves, and I don't hate him shooting that one. But I just mentioned 5 guys that can kind of create for themselves or others. Plus Sissoko, if he the low post thing. But basically 4. And this is what it gets down to. These guys are shot fake, and when they shot fake, they get a reaction out of it. Yesterday, one of Akins' 3-pointers. Indiana just scored, blitz the other way. Hogard takes it in, takes it all the way to the rim, kicks it out to Hauser, because he's the trailer in the blitz counter break. Hauser's the 4. So if the other team scores, Hauser's the guy that inbounds it and comes in as the trailer top of the key. So defense stops Hogard, because that stresses you as a defense. Flips it back to Hauser. They get out on Hauser because he stresses you with the A.J. Granger game, right? So shot fake. Now what's open? Akins, 3, makes it. The ball, here's the deal. Whether it be, this is the point I'm getting to. Hauser can score, Akins can score, Walker can score, Hogard can do his thing. With all those guys and those skills and the shot fake and getting reactions, the ball doesn't get stuck, to use one of your phrases, right? In past years, the great Miles Bridges team that won 30 games that I never liked, the ball got stuck a lot. And the Big Ten was not very good that year. The team with this team, they're going to get better. They're going to get healthier. They're not going to be this tired all the time. But even now, tired and a man down, the ball doesn't get stuck. And it could be a headache for opposing defenses.
Well, that's having the 2 guards. That's the one thing.
Yeah.
Having the Tyson Walker and having Hogard as 2 guys that can dribble the basketball, and Michigan State hasn't had that. I know that's one thing Bill Self is always big on. I'm watching them. I don't think they have, the same type of guards they typically do, but
or
they
bigs.
always,
They don't have the great bigs either, right? And they don't have the great point guard. They're still winning, which I give them credit for. But go ahead.
I think the Big 12 is overrated. I think that Ken Palm's his evaluation is messed up. I've been trying to pay attention to it. There's about a 2-point buffer that's messed up. I was talking to, there was a post last week with Rod and Andy H. and some other people on the Final Forum, and it's predicated on big victory. So that's the whole thing about Ken Palm. If you don't have a big victory, then you're not going to be able to, be in the top 10 or 15. But, this Michigan State team, like you were saying, that so many years the basketball would just stick forever. It was so frustrating. You get to shot clock situations where Michigan State, all of a sudden, you're seeing the 30-second shot clock's expired. You're like, how did that happen? You don't see that this year. You really don't.
They stress you. They move the ball, and the defense is always trying to catch up. And you have guys like Hauser using that pivot foot real well and just getting reactions and just opening the next door, extra pass against Nebraska, extra pass. It's kind of nice, and it's going to get better, Nils. It's going to get better.
I think you're especially going to see it in the tournament because teams, in terms of having a game plan, they're not going to be able to scout. They're going to be okay. Who are we going to try to take away? I think Michigan State's going to be able to, get shots, against almost any team in the tournament. I think, like you said, no one's going to want to face Michigan State. They don't want them in their bracket. Not this year, especially when there's no, number one. I mean, yesterday Houston gets beat by Temple at home by 1. I think Houston's flawed. I don't think they shoot the basketball well enough. The Shed kid, the kid I've known since he's 3 years old, he's a good, steady point guard, but he's not a grade A shooter. They don't have the length they've had in the past. They've got some nice bigs, but I think, and the league they're in is, the AAC is really flawed. So, they don't, every night, they're playing East Carolina or they're playing SMU or they're playing, Tulane or Southern Miss, or I don't even know if Southern Miss is in the league anymore, but I mean, the league is not that strong. So I think in the end, it's going to catch up with them. I don't think they score the basketball well enough. I think they're a flawed number one for sure. I know they're not number one anymore after yesterday with Purdue being number one, but all these teams have flaws.
What about Jamal Shed? You mentioned you coached him a little bit, didn't you? What's your background with him?
Jamal, his dad played in our events. I've known him since he was 3 years old. He's just a bully point guard. He's strong. He should be an NFL DB. I mean, if you look at his build, he looks like a strong safety or a cornerback. I mean, he didn't like football. It's too hot, but he's a good lead point guard. He just doesn't shoot it well. Doesn't shoot it at a high percentage, but he can defend because, if you're going to play for Kelvin Sampson, you're going to have to defend. And he does a good job of getting Sasser and Traymon Mark involved and gets the ball, to all their players. But I think, last year they struggled against Villanova, in the Elite Eight. And that's why they didn't get to the Final Four last year because their shooting, I think it's going to end up being an issue again. And I don't think Sasser's a good college player, but he's not uber athletic. So that's going to end up catching up with him.
All right, so Trey Holloman came in the game yesterday. His second shift in the first half.
You don't see him playing?
Yeah, I do. I messed it up. Yeah, he's one of the 9. Yeah, he'll play a couple minutes. You got, I assume Sissoko still long term. Hogard, Walker, Hauser, Hall, Sissoko. Off the bench, Akins, Kohler, Cooper, Holloman. Those 9. And Pierre Brooks has got to get a lot better to be part of that. And I'm not sure that's going to happen. He can provide a role here and there, but he's gotten, as everybody saw, got a little bit out of shape again. And he's got to be
open shots.
Yeah.
All those shots are open.
Yeah, for like 3 straight games. And he's not made a 3-pointer, I don't think, since the Nebraska game on January 3rd. I think it's been that long. So if he's boiling down to just being a specific, like, shooter, role player, 2 minutes a half. And people are giving him open shots now. And if he can make, a 3-pointer, I hate to say it, but it's almost like a Mike Chappelle role, But not even that many minutes. Do one thing, make a shot, sit down, don't get hurt on defense, whatever. He was trying yesterday. When you look at it, and Izzo mentioned he liked the effort a little bit more, and I was looking, and his knees were bent on the weak side on defense, that's not his natural way of playing. So he's trying to tune in and do the right things. But I don't want to pile on because I know a lot of fans are really probably being rough on him. And I don't want to say I was critical of him, but I was concerned and constructive about what he was lacking back in October when he was scoring 14, 15 points a couple of times. That all looked good against Portland or whoever. And that'd be nice if he could shoot like that, but the rest of it needed to come around if he was going to maintain a role once Akins and Hall came back. They did come back. His minutes went down. His body language suffered. He lost some confidence. Like Izzo said, human nature, you're going to maybe start feeling sorry a little bit. But then, instead of, I don't want to say he wasn't working, but he put on a couple more pounds and it's kind of hurting him on defense now. I don't want to pile on and slam him, but they could use him to come in and hit a spot three and play 3 minutes a half. But I'm not sure that it's going to get
weight though. That's what I want to know. How has he gained weight during the season?
I don't know. Remember when Draymond Green used to say that? When Draymond ended up losing the weight by he stopped drinking apple juice and orange juice, he said. He used to drink juice all the time. But there have been other players that have gained weight in season. I don't know how it happens. I'm not sure.
Because he looks puffier, exactly. I mean, that's why everything he has, he's probably got 3 or 4 pounds he needs to get rid of it. Not correcting things, because he was a different player when he had, who did he score the 15 points against?
He did it a couple times. Was it 15 against Northern Arizona, and then either Portland and maybe Oregon?
And those weren't great teams, but those were back-to-back days. So, I mean, you'd think if he was overweight then, that would really affect him at that time. But, it seems to me in the last 2 or 3 weeks he's gained some bad weight because he looks puffier in the face. You know what I mean? It just looks, you can just see it. He gains a lot of weight in his face.
Yeah, he scored 14 against Northern Arizona in the opening game of the year, 4 out of 7 from three-point range. And he had 15 against Oregon, and he was 3 out of 11 from 3 on that night. And he had 15 against Portland, and he was 4 for 4 from three-point range on that night. He has not made a three-pointer since the Nebraska game. 2, 3, 6, 7, 10. He's 0 for his last 10 from three-point range. And if he's not making threes, it's not working. And we didn't, he had the foul. Izzo was he didn't rip into him about that because he's trying to bring him along. But there was a loose ball scramble, and Hauser was on the deck, and a couple guys were on the deck, and Indiana ends up getting the loose ball, and Pierre reaches in and gets a foul. They were not in the bonus yet, but you could tell Izzo didn't like it, but he was biting his tongue about it because you have to pick and choose to win your battles to bring a kid along. Right now, he's almost damaged, so Izzo, you can see, is kind of letting off the gas a little bit on him. But that's Brooks out there just trying to make a play. It's a loose ball, he reaches in, foul. But ends up, 15 minutes, 1 rebound. 15 minutes, 1 rebound. If you're missing open shots. Everybody knows he's struggling. But you get Hall back, and, Brooks is kind of fortunate right now that he's getting these opportunities to audition, even though it's not going well. Because otherwise, he was going to finish out the rest of the season 3 minutes a game or close to it. So yesterday, they bring in Holloman. His first shift I thought was pretty good. He comes in, he's Energizer Bunny. He's ready to push it, and they get faster when he comes off the bench a little bit. Went back, sat, came back after Hogard committed a second foul. Michigan State's up 21-14. Hogard sits, 8 minutes to go. Playing with house money, you got the lead. Rather than putting Hogard back on the court and risking getting a third foul before halftime, okay, you got a lead. We can probably weather the storm. Didn't weather the storm. Indiana 21-4 run during that time. But Holloman on a second shift had a couple real nice quick runs to the rim, but kind of missed ugly off the glass, which is what Hogard used to do 2 years ago. He'd get to the glass and miss those layups. Remember, Holloman also, this is what Izzo was most upset about. Is that when Holloman went out there, Izzo said, okay, we're not blitzing anymore, we're not running anymore. They just kind of wanted to get to halftime. But they sped it up the one time, and Akins, I think, shot a little quicker than they wanted. And then there was the other time on a blitz counter break when Holloman threw it deep up the right sideline and it went out of bounds because Tyson Walker was not running the lane because Izzo had told them we're not blitz counter breaking. Everybody got that message except Holloman. So it was a mistake. It was a turnover. Hurt them in that game, but here's the thing. That's the last time Holloman's ever going to make that mistake. You learn from it. Izzo's like, when I say we're not running anymore, you need to get the message and carry it out. So Izzo loves Holloman. Got a chance to chew him out a little bit. Izzo did yesterday. Lost the game. Izzo is understanding of all the proceedings and why it went down the way it did. But Kohler got a little bit better. Holloman with that error got better. Akins flashed some higher potential. Lost by 13 is Nils. And I came out thinking I liked Michigan State's chances of getting past the Sweet 16 even a little more than I did before the game. Does that make any sense at all?
100%. But, 6 of those points there at the end were just, Trace Jackson Davis, like you said in your article. I mean, just garbage points. I mean, in my opinion, it was a 6 or 7 point game, for the most part. That's why I hate when it gets out of hand at the end. It's, it looks, on a Ken Palm, it's 82 to 69. Well, every point really matters when you're thinking about it in terms of the metrics. And so, just it's horrible that it's all about analytics. But if you put your eyes on the game, like you said, you got to feel pretty good if you're Michigan State. You go in there to Indiana, you competed for about 34, 35 minutes with a team that was shooting as well as they've ever shot. They shot 90% from the line. They, Galloway and, Bates, like we talked about, were 8 and 9 from 3. Renault, who's starting to play a little bit for him. He's another 5-star who kind of came off the bench yesterday and gave him stuff. And I don't know how big is that Renault kid?
Let me look it up right now. And you can see the individual talent. I can see why some people had Indiana in the top 15 this year, even though they struggled earlier in the season. But you can see that talent. They got some, man-sized guys too. I mean, Jalen Hood-Schifino at 6'6", 213, a freshman guard. That's a big guy. As far as Renault go, he's 6'9", 233, freshman from Miami. That's a lot of talent coming off the bench. They've got a lot of good freshmen. And Xavier Johnson's going to be coming back pretty soon.
It'll be interesting to see how they progress because, like you said, I mean, they look the part. They come off the bench. I mean, they've got a bunch of good-looking dudes. And Geronimo's
tough.
Anybody.
He's tough. He's 6'6", 225 junior. I mean, he set a couple screens along the baseline. He jolted some people. And he's one of the guys that pushed Hauser during one of those key offensive rebounds. And Geronimo was mixing it up with Hauser, under the basket that one time. And then Miller Kopp gave Sissoko that shoulder, checked him to the ground on that one. So Indiana came out wanting to land punches on Michigan State. They came out, that Woodson, you could just tell what the game plan was or what part of it was. Hey, Michigan State's known to being tough and playing defensive rebounding. We're not going to wait for them to punch us in the mouth. We're going to punch them in the mouth first, and we're going to do it again and again and again. Michigan State has dealt with that a lot. Teams come after them because they respect Michigan State's toughness. Indiana has been criticized a little bit this year for being a little bit too finesse, even with all these well-built athletes. But they came out, Miller Kopp comes out, role player, knocks down Sissoko. Because other than Sissoko, they're real young. Michigan State's real young along the front line, especially without Malik Hall. So you can see what they were doing. That upset Sissoko. Sissoko got in his face, and Kopp gave the pounds, palms up and jawing at him, which is what he was just showing. He was soldiering out the orders, and you could tell Indiana wanted to do it that way. And I think that did that affect Sissoko? I don't know. Did it, he's been a little bit of a slump. Did that wear down Hauser a little bit down the stretch? Maybe so, but Hauser's been playing 35 minutes, which is too many with the way Michigan State wants to play. But Indiana, to their credit, showed that they could come out and carry out some marching orders and play with some toughness. Trace Jackson Davis was doing some hooting and hollering. Have you ever seen him do that before? Is that part of his game usually?
No, not really. I think it's a different deal when that game's on Sunday on CBS. Everybody forgets, right? That's the game. It's the game before Buffalo and Cincinnati are to play. I mean, if you think about a lead-in game, that game's getting more viewers in the last 10 minutes just because it's the AFC divisional playoffs coming right after. So, that's always been the game. That 11 o'clock game before the divisional playoffs is always one of your higher-rated games, and you're going down there. It's snowy and it's cold in Indiana, and they were lathered up and their students were back in. So they had 17,000 plus, and that place, I remember, I don't know what year it was. I was either 94 or 95. I've talked about this before. Michigan State goes down there, and I know Steingle was a senior, I think. So
91.
Michigan State, and there's 7 fouls on Michigan State before Indiana had 1 called on them. I'm like, I'd never seen that before. I'm like, how does that work? Mm-hmm. And so, that place and Woodson, they were talking about, Mike Woodson going over to Illinois the other on Thursday night, and the last time he ever played in there, he scored 48 points. And he didn't realize that was the same arena. He's like, this is the same place? And then they go, yeah. He goes, I put 48 up in there. I mean, I think Woodson, he's been around. He knows basketball. I didn't give him enough credit. I think he's trying to. I think he might be figuring his team out a little bit, and he knows how to get into them. And because he barks, he gets in there, in the rear end a little bit. I didn't see that coming, but he's got a little bit of Izzo in him. He doesn't cow down to what how they feel about their feelings at all.
Yeah, I thought it was coming off the rails a little bit for Indiana earlier in the season, but they've gotten it back on track, and they've added that team element of toughness yesterday. That I think, Izzo didn't like the cheap shot against Sissoko, but I think he can respect the rest of it. Now they get Race Thompson back in there. He's got some muscle. He can throw around a little bit. If they can keep it on course, they can be what they were expected to be in the preseason, which I had my doubts about, but fewer doubts now. But you're right, Indiana versus Purdue 2 more times coming down the stretch. That's going to be entertaining. I give Indiana credit the way Michigan State was playing post defense. Indiana diagnosed it, and by the midpoint of the game, they were attacking it. Michigan State has some dilemmas with how they go about post defense, and they see it all the time. Dang Danja at Illinois, Dickinson at Michigan, Edey at Purdue. The guy at Rutgers is pretty good. And, of course, Trace Jackson Davis. So what's Michigan State going to do? Do you double in the post? Because Michigan State, Sissoko's a pretty good defensive player, really good defensive player out away from the rim for a center with ball screen defense. In the post, he's okay. But in this league, single coverage is quick death against Edey and against Trace Jackson Davis and sometimes against Dickinson. Now, there were a couple times in this game when I thought Sissoko did really well in the post defensively. Like, early in the second half, do you remember when Tyson Walker reached down there and got a dig steal? They posted up Trace.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? On that play, Sissoko, he's down low, his feet are spread apart, and Sissoko's got quick feet. You see it when he plays ball screen defense. Those quick feet also serve him well with post defense. He's got pretty good strength. He's not the strongest guy in the block, but Sissoko's got pretty good strength. But the quick feet, he's it's on the left block, and he's playing to the left shoulder of Trace Jackson Davis, and he's there with the quick feet. And then Trace Jackson Davis tries to counter back to the baseline, and Sissoko's quick enough to move his feet to take that away, and that's when Walker came down for the steal. It was the foot quickness of Sissoko on the block which prevented Trace Jackson Davis from counting left and just drop stepping and going in like he does against most people. I thought that was good team defense right there. Sissoko can play good defense, and the post defense, the way Michigan State was doing it, as you saw, Michigan State was digging with the guard. Sometimes they would dig, sometimes they would hedge or stunt like they're gonna dig but not dig, but mostly they would. And once in a while they would commit to a full double team with guards. Izzo said they didn't want to double team with the 4-man with Hauser because Indiana is so good with interior passing, 5 to the 4 if you commit to a double team with the 4. So Michigan State wanted to dig with guards. And with Hogard being a big point and Akins being having pretty good size, there's not a huge difference if you double with Hogard as doubling with Hauser, So it made sense. So Michigan State, they threw him off a little bit, and he missed his first 4 shots. Missed some that maybe he would normally make. Like I said, he was 7 out of 17 with 3 minutes to go. So that's not what hurt them, but what hurt Michigan State. But Michigan State, if they hedged or if they dug with the guard, when he kicked it back out, let's say the ball's on the left block and it's down in the block and Trace Jackson Davis is posting up. Walker comes down as a hedge help guy, or he's digging. If he kicks it back out, the guy that Walker was guarding, now Hogard has him. And the guy that Hogard was guarding, now Pierre Brooks has him. And the guy that Brooks had over on the other side, that's who Walker has to scramble back to. I think that's what they call an X out. So you dig in the post on the right block, or on the left block. If the ball goes back out to the perimeter, Walker has to race over to the opposite side wing to find his guy. And Michigan State was doing okay with that for most of the game. But later, Indiana, as the game went along, they figured that out. And they were able to ball movement and get the open shot for a 3, which Michigan State was willing to take that poison. But there was that one time when I think it was Kopp went in for a dunk. They gave Indiana a 61-53 lead with 9:48 to go. Post, inside out. On that one, Akins dug, and Akins was trying to rotate past 3 players to get back out to Kopp. Kopp catches it and drives immediately and dunks. I mean, that's straight from the sideline. That's straight from the sideline. We're going to get it in, get it back out, over to the skip pass to the weak side, and you catch it and you go before the guy reacts to you. That was in-game adjustment by Indiana. I assume they've seen that from other teams, but maybe not. But I thought Woodson did a good job with that, and the players did a good job carrying that out. Do you remember that dunk when Kopp went in there?
Oh, yeah, because I think somebody walled off Hauser.
Yes,
because
yes.
was
Hauser,
like-
yeah, Hauser was.
baseline.
You're exactly right. Good memory, Nils. Yeah, it was Renault who walled him off. To the point where it could have maybe been an illegal screen, maybe. Yeah, it's probably, I don't know. But you're right. They walled him off on that rotation because during that rotation, Hauser's supposed to help on that because he knows it's coming. For the most part, Michigan State was pretty good with their choreography on defense, especially in the first half. Second half, it got a little lax. Gave up a three-pointer. I think it was the one. Hogard didn't rotate over. 13 minutes to go. Posting up, Jackson Davis back outside. And I think it might have been Galloway that hit a three-pointer, but Izzo mentioned that after the game that they didn't get an X out. He thought he was talking about the 6 games in 16 days where it caught up with them, and he's like, just a play here, a play there, a step there, sluggish here, sluggish there, just not all the zip that you need on defense, especially on the road there, to carry out all the things you worked on with only one day to work on it, really. Because you have like a walkthrough and then you travel and the next day you practice, but you can't really kill yourself over it. So, you're not really having great preparation. 6 straight games of 2-day preps, 2-day game, 2 days game, 2-day game, 2-day game, 2-day game for 16 days. Ridiculous. Caught up with them, and they played well.
Let's get ahead of ourselves a little bit. So, in terms of the Big Ten tournament, right? You want to have a top 4 seed because then you get that first day bye, the double bye, right? That's still the case.
I think so.
So I think that's but so what's it going to take? Is it going to take 13-7 in the Big Ten? I think I think 13-7 gets you a 4th place because I think
who do you have to be?
End up with probably
who do you have to be? Okay, Indiana or Purdue's going to get 1. Everybody else is in a mosh pit right now. I assume this.
I think Indiana and Illinois are going to be 2 and 3.
Do you?
Yeah, I just don't see anybody else. I don't see, I think Rutgers is flawed. I don't think they have the high-end talent. I think they're ahead of everybody a little bit early because they are a little bit more mature. I mean, okay, he's 90 years old. I swear to God he's been there. Then, there's other goons they have. I mean, I think I don't think they have the skill they had us because they don't have Ron Harper Jr. Remember how good he was?
Mm-hmm. I lost respect for Rutgers. I lost respect for Rutgers' operation against Michigan State the other night. I was like, I don't know. I know everybody has bad nights, but that was just like an operational situation going on there. I like their toughness and their energy and athleticism, but hey, Michigan State's got some wins coming up. I assume they're going to do okay with Iowa. They'll lose at Purdue. Got Rutgers. That's in Madison Square Garden. That's better than
the best part of that. That's the best part of that deal.
Yes,
because that you don't have to play in the rack, which is just it's a cesspool, and you're automatically going to play well in the Garden. I mean, how often do you get to do that? So you automatically. I mean, that's just I don't know how did they set for that deal?
I don't know
because of the team, the Big Ten.
I think it's a TV thing. Fox say, "Hey, Rutgers, how about you guys play Michigan State at Saturday at noon for a national televised game in Madison Square Garden?"
Can you do it better? Can you do any better than that?
Michigan State being an elite blue blood program, which a lot of people say they are, that gets Michigan State some tough television heavyweight matchups. Izzo wasn't looking to play Gonzaga this year. I know Gonzaga didn't turn out to be as good as everybody thought, but he didn't want some. He didn't. Yeah, Izzo didn't. Gonzaga says, "Hey, we're going to play this game on the aircraft carrier. We want it to be Michigan State. Do you want to play?" And Izzo's like, "No, but yes." He don't want someone else to go do that. That's Michigan State's game, right? And then, playing, a 2-day prep and cramming Purdue in there on Martin Luther King Day. It's a nice stage, but it was part of the accordion effect of the schedule because they're Michigan State. And Fox wanted Michigan State on that Martin Luther King Day game. And Fox wants Michigan State on this Saturday noon game, Madison Square Garden, Rutgers. In this case, it helps Michigan State. Usually it hurts. It helps with their branding and, getting out there and getting the Michigan State basketball blue blood brand out there. It's good, even with losses. In this case, the blue blood branding helps. It's almost like when Duke used to go to Madison Square Garden. This is a plus, not having to go to the rack. Now they have to go there and they have to win. Purdue, probably going to lose. Got Maryland at home, at Ohio State. Ohio State has loose tires right now, right? And then they play. Then they get Minnesota at home. What's that?
That key kid got hurt. The big thumper, number 23.
Yeah.
He hurt his shoulder. They haven't been the same since. I think he got hurt against Purdue the first time. I don't think they've been the same because I don't think they have the toughness.
So these 6 games, I think Michigan State can go 5-1 in these 6 games. Beat Iowa, beat Rutgers, beat Maryland, at Ohio State, Minnesota at home. You lose to Purdue. You can go 5-1 in these next 6. You do that, Michigan State's in really good shape to be in the top 4 in the Big Ten.
and that's all you want.
Then after that, you're at Michigan State on a Saturday night. Who knows what at Michigan on a Saturday night. Who knows what Michigan's going to look like by then. After Michigan State played Michigan here this year, I was like, well, Michigan will probably win the return match. But now we'll see what happens with Jett Howard and that injury. We'll see where Malik Hall is at that time. Michigan is really, they've not looked very good in the last 2 weeks. Everybody knows that. Now, Michigan State will have a 2-day prep, but they'll have 3 days before the Minnesota game. That'll be a little tight there. They get 5 days off after Maryland to go to Ohio State. That's good. They play on a Tuesday, and then they don't play Ohio State till Sunday. So they'll get a 5-day prep, 4-day prep to go on the road to play Ohio State. Come back home against Minnesota on a 2-day prep, and then 2 more days for Michigan. That sets up okay. All right, so that's Michigan on a Saturday. Then on Tuesday, get Sunday, Monday, get 2-day prep for Indiana coming back for that return match. That's going to be a nice one because I think Michigan State they'll have a burr up their butt about that game after what happened on Sunday. Losing the game's okay, but when you have guys like kind of taking liberties here and there and knocking people to the ground and jawing and all this stuff, Izzo won't have any trouble getting the guys back up for that one. I'm not saying Michigan State can put Malik Carr and Keon Coleman into the game and really start roughhousing like Izzo would like to with some past teams. This team is not stocked with those type of guys. But if they have Malik Hall back, and not that he's ever been a great enforcer, but with the right mentality, and Sissoko will have grown up even more. He's grown up all the time. Hogard will be at full blast. That'll be entertaining. That's a Tuesday night game. Then at Iowa, at Nebraska. That's 2 of the last 3 games, winnable games. Those will be tough. They'll have a 3 or 4 day prep to go at Iowa. Then they'll have a 2-day prep to go at Nebraska. Not easy, but it's not like you're going, this is later in the year. By that time, they'll be playing to hang in that top 4 like you're talking about. Then they finish at home on senior day against Ohio State. That's a win. There's a lot of wins coming up for Michigan State, I think. As much as there's parity in the Big Ten and it's a mosh pit of everybody beating everybody else, there'll be some losses in there, probably like at Iowa. Michigan State will probably lay an egg on that game. It's a noon game. Now that's a noon game, which is 11 a.m. in Iowa City. That's not bad. I'll take that. That helps a little bit. They'll lose some of those games, but I think Michigan State's got some wins coming up.
So you think 13-7 is the number you're looking at?
I don't know. I'm not good with numbers. I don't know.
They're 5-4 right now.
5-4? Yeah, that's not very pretty, is it? So 13-7, something like that. Top 4, like you're talking about. Get away from playing. Yeah. So, I think they got some wins coming up, and I just want to see Hall get back, get healthy, take his time, so it's not duct tape and eggshells. And I don't know what the team's going to look like. We don't. None of us know. I think the head coach is pretty damn good, and hey, Hogard and Walker play well together. They like each other. They play off each other real well. All right, so Nils, you got to go. All right,
yeah, I gotta go.
All right, man. Appreciate you joining the show, Nils Deco. Go take care of business. We appreciate your insight and help and your strong opinions. Let's go back over here to let's check out the mailbag here again, and then we'll take a look at the comments, and then we'll wrap it up. Where is it? Did I lose it? All right, here it is. All right, this was actually question number 1. It was Bike Mike from Parts Unknown. He says, what's the latest on the defensive line coach opening? Michigan State defensive line coach opening. Marco Coleman goes to Georgia Tech a couple of weeks ago. Kevin Vickerson's been a GA for a couple of years, done a really good job, well respected by the players. 13 years in the NFL. Overqualified right now as a graduate assistant. But Michigan State's had no shortage of other people that are interested in the job. It's tough. It's competitive. We'll have to wait and see. And I've been hearing that there was a former college coach that was interested in the job, a current Power 5 defensive line coach interested in the job. The Michigan State's interested in. We'll see. And a defensive line coach from a Power 5 team from last year, who's available that Michigan State's been interested in. Depending on what happens with the hiring, I might reveal some of those names later. But right now, you get sources, and sources, want to hold off on things. So, but that's out there a little bit, kind of. But there's some good candidates, and I kind of thought something would happen in the last few days, but They're still working on it. Now, let's go to the next question. Master Sounds from Chicago. He says, a few random questions during my time at Michigan State. He says, what is your read on Brandon Dawson's career? I should have asked Nils about this. Nils has better instant recall and memory than I do on some of these things. This guy, Master Sounds from Chicago, says, I thought Brandon Dawson was one of the best defenders, rebounders, and dunkers under Izzo, but never seemed to figure it all out, especially shooting. He says, Marvin Clark was playing over him late in his career before he transferred. I thought Dawson could have been one of the best, but never made the jump. What are your thoughts? I think you're exactly right. He had everything but the jump shot. The defense, the rebounding, he was a pain in the rear to play against. He was a part of some good winning teams. And Izzo was always working with Brandon Dawson to stay within the team construct on defense to make the whole greater. Don't get out there in the passing lanes trying to get steals and dunks for yourself all the time. Play solid defense. That's how we're going to win championships. And sometimes they had to bench him. Then they brought him back and they won the Big Ten tournament. He might have been MVP of the Big Ten tournament. And it was and there's that picture of him with his arm around Izzo, and they battled back and forth. Dawson was a good guy, but Izzo was battling with him to do it the right way. But some guys just never get the jump shot down. Mateen Cleaves never really got the jump shot down. He was a clutch shooter, one of the great all-time winners in college basketball in the last, 30 years or whatever. But in terms of consistently, and he worked on it, just never came around. Raymar Morgan was a good all-around player, never developed a real good jump shot. Brandon Dawson was another one. If he had been a good shooter, guy kind of had a Larry Johnson type of game almost. But I agree. Defense, rebounding, energy, muscle, pain in the rear to play against. And his teams won. Senior year, they went to the Final Four. They beat Georgia. Second round, they beat Virginia. In that game, Dawson had 9 rebounds, team high. Sweet 16, Dawson leads the team in rebounds, 11 rebounds. They beat Oklahoma. Elite 8, beat Louisville in the Carrier Dome. Dawson leads the team with 11 rebounds. Went to the Final Four. Senior year. Lost to Duke 81-61 in the Final Four. In that game, the officials, that was just a spoiled specimen. Just, whistle. Michigan State wanted to get up and down with them and run with, who was it, a Corafor? They wanted to run him. They never got a chance to run because it was stoppage. So Michigan State's transition game, which they thought could get going, could never get it going. The officials just made that a non-basketball game. It was a travesty. Then Wisconsin had Duke beat, and then the officials stepped in again, and Duke won the national title. So, junior year, Dawson, they went to the Elite 8. They lost the eventual national champion UConn in Madison Square Garden. But Dawson, the second round, had 26 and 6 against Harvard as a junior. Led the team in scoring and rebounding. 26 points, 6 rebounds. Sweet 16, led the team in scoring and rebounding again against Virginia. Sweet 16, 24 points, 10 rebounds in Madison Square Garden. Led the team in both as a junior. So I agree. Brandon Dawson was a hell of a college basketball player and made a heck of a mark on the Izzo era for one of his Final Fours and that Elite 8 right there. Give him a jump shot, and he's Mark Aguirre. So not everybody can be great, but he's still playing. He's playing professionally, I think, in Taiwan. So good luck to Dawson. I hope he's making good money and saving money over there. Question 2. This guy from Chicago, what's his name again? Masters Sounds from Chicago. He says, when Ohio State visited East Lansing in 2014, Jeremy Langford had a long touchdown run called back for holding before halftime. Was that actually holding in your eyes? He wants to know about a holding. I remember because JT Barrett was perfect that day. And I had some other thoughts about that game. I don't know if enough time has passed, but it probably has. He was perfect, and Michigan State won the Big Ten the year before, won the Rose Bowl. 2014, this is an eventual national championship Ohio State team. Although Ohio State, I think, lost to Virginia Tech the week before or something like that. Ended up becoming a national champion. And Ohio State was just great, and Michigan State couldn't keep up with them, and it was like 48-21, something like that. But a long touchdown run before halftime was called back. I think I don't remember that being I think I looked, I don't remember. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to Wolverine media the thing or anything. I'm not going to go Zapruder film on it. But I'm sure I looked it up back then. And, when they call holding, they're not making it up. They're not imagining that they saw something. Was it something that had an impact on the play? I can't remember. But Ohio State was so good that night, it wasn't going to make a difference. And it's a very good team. He says, also, how bad was Darian Hicks in coverage that game in that season? In 2014, I mean, that defense was pretty good. Hicks, I remember people ripping on him a little bit, but it's probably better than you realize. He says, I think Tony Lippett was moved over to corner after the Ohio State game. People of my age group might be overrating how bad Hicks's performance was. Yeah, I think Darian Hicks was okay. If you're remembering him being a bad player or something, got to remember that 2014 team finished number 6 in the country, had a good defense, and he was part of it. So if he was on the field with that team, he was pretty good. Did he give up a play here and there? Probably so. Most corners do. And he asks, do you have any legendary or funny basketball or football stories worth bringing up from the 2011 to 2015 era, basically up until the Indianapolis Final Four run? Well, that Indianapolis Final Four run, I remember, I don't know, this might not be very funny, but I don't know, the first thing that pops into my head is when we were in Syracuse, the Carrier Dome, Louisville had Montrezl Harrell, good player, and I just got a kick out of the first name Montrez with the silent L. I always want to call him Montrezl. What a great player he was. So during that whole trip, I referred to Paul Konerdijk, associate editor, partner in crime. I called Paul Montrezl like all weekend. It's like, ready to go eat Montrezl? What's going on, Montrezl? And occasionally I'll throw that out, even today. Montrezl, I don't know. You might not. You probably had to be there. But in terms of stuff you would be interested in, Michigan State-wise, I don't remember. I don't know. You're just throwing that at me. I'd have to think. I'd have to think about games. I don't know. Good question. I'm not up to the challenge. All right, what do we have here? Question number 3. Spefton from East Lansing says, it's almost looking like Purdue at the top, Minnesota at the bottom to bookend the Big Ten with everybody else tied between 2 and 13. Is there that much parity in the Big Ten hoops, or do you see some more clear-cut separations within the conference? Where do you see Michigan State finishing? Nils and I just talked about that. I think Michigan State's got some wins coming up. Maybe I'm overrating Michigan State. Maybe I'm underrating the parity factor. But I think Michigan State's going to get a little juice going now. I mean, they've been through the gauntlet a couple times. They're going to survive. They have experience on playing tired. Now they're going to be fresh. I think Michigan State, with that senior backcourt, Walker, of course, Hogarth's a junior, but that's an experienced backcourt with skill. You don't usually see a senior as good as Tyson Walker still in college basketball. And he's flanked by a guy like Hogarth who's tough. And Hogarth he's always been a talker, but he's becoming more of a constructive talker. And one thing that Izzo liked about the Purdue game was Hogarth took over a couple times. Today, I got this. We're going to run this. I got this. And Izzo was like, that's progress. But the maturity there, you got a couple of grown men, Hogarth and Walker. I think Hogarth's a killer. And then you have Akins, who's just fabulous talent. You got Hall coming back that can play the 3 and the 4, very versatile. If he can plug in and be healthy, I've said that 1,000 times. He's got to be a healthy version of that. And then Hauser, just kind of not having to hunt his shots, just kind of, just finding his areas in there. That's the ball doesn't get stuck, and they've got a nice array of different type of skill there. And the way they can share the ball and get open shots for each other, I think they're dangerous. I think they can be good. For a team that's not in the top 25, that nationally nobody's looking at, watch out for Michigan State. Now, things have to come together. Hall's got to get healthy. That's a big if. But I'm just saying, they've got these losses, and people are forgetting about them. They weren't much in the preseason and all that. Okay. But you don't want to lose so much that you become a 7 or an 8 seed. I mean, you want to get up to being a 5. I know that 5s often get upset. Not when it's Michigan State. When Michigan State's a 5, they're a live 5. All right. Question number 4. A guy named In Jail Out Soon. He's from Parts Unknown. He says, I'm curious if you think any of these 3 players would be returning to Michigan State basketball next year. Malik Hall, Tyson Walker, Joey Hauser. Any chance any of those 3 come back? Hauser cannot. He's done. I think Walker can, but he probably won't. Malik Hall, if Malik Hall never gets the health situation straightened back out, which I thought was the case 8 days ago, I thought he was done. He thought he was done. They thought he was done. If that had been the case, I think he would come back. I haven't asked him. I've not heard that. But with that extra year, I think it's possible. Depending on whether he comes back and gets all the way healthy or not, I suspect there might be a chance that he could pull a Joey Hauser and come back, but I don't think Hauser can. I think this is his 6th year. In Jail Out Soon says, I would love to see all 3 come back next year, but I'm not sure that's possible. Yeah, I don't think it's possible with Hauser. At this time last year, I was saying that Michigan State could be really dangerous if Gabe Brown and Marcus Bingham came back, but they were ready to move on. Now, would Hall be... If Gabe Brown were on the team, then Akins is coming off the bench, not getting as many minutes, and maybe you'd just rather have Akins. I think you'd just rather have Akins. Bingham, it'd be nice to have Bingham, I think, just to have his... Even if Bingham was, he wore people down a little bit just because he was inconsistent and the problems. Just good kid and everything, but, they'd like to have him, though, but I don't know. I don't know if they ever really put a package together for that. I'm not sure. But, some guys are just ready to move on and be done with college also. What do we have here? Question number 5. Sparty from Pawleys Island, South Carolina. Let me check over here in the comments area, make sure the things aren't burning down. Sparty from Pawleys Island, South Carolina says, love this Michigan State Hoops team, but seems like Pierre Brooks is in a big funk. He says Kohler, Cooper, and Holloman could be getting more minutes, while Brooks, unfortunately, should be getting less minutes. He says, especially when Hall comes back. He says, I hate to give up on Brooks, as he has yet to show times where he has looked great offensively, at least. What do you think? What do you attribute his recent regression to? Sorry, I should have cleaned that up a little bit. We talked about the regression a little bit. I think he put on some weight again. I think he lost some confidence. I think there is some fog there. And as you don't quite gather everything defensively, do you start doubting yourself and play a little slower? Yeah, I think he is. He was better on defense yesterday. He was down, had his knees bent. He was in proper places, which is progress. But missing the shots, 0 for his last 10 from three-point range, that's, just not getting as many minutes. You kind of get into you start pressing and you start grabbing the stick a little tighter, to use a hockey term. He's not an 0 for 10 three-point shooter. I mean, that's the one thing he can do and should be able to do. And if he had made a couple in that game might have been different. I don't know. Probably weren't going to win anyway. But, yeah, again, I don't want to pile on him, but it's got to start with defense first. And 15 minutes with 1 rebound needs to be better there. But, yeah, when Hall comes back, I think Brooks is going to have a hard time getting more than a couple minutes a half. Unless he just starts draining threes. And he can't be, blowing those gaskets, blowing those leaks on defense. And I've said it before, but we said that back in November, December. The things he was doing then, even if he was scoring points, that was probably going to dry up. But when Hall and Akins came back, he was going to lose minutes because the other parts were not solvent. Does not have good foot speed. Then he added a little bit more weight, made him even a little slower. And then the fog, it's just not a good combination. And you better be able to shoot to offset that. If you're not shooting and it doesn't offset that, then he's a minus 15. Feel bad for him. He is trying. So we'll see. Realtor Evan from Bloomfield Village says, in basketball, what are the chances that a player or two will transfer this summer? I won't name names, but the player in mind is getting more minutes and missing a lot of shots. It's probably who we just talked about. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. You got players coming in. Would not surprise me if that happened. And everybody knows that's on the table. So that's all I know about that. All right, let's go back over here. That's all for the mailbag this week. I just posted a few hours ago in the mailbag. We appreciate those of you that provided questions. Now let's go over here and check the comments area. It's always a fun time to check the comments area. Still have over 100 people with us this late at night. We appreciate that. YT Sparty says, Hauser was out of gas. Tyson was sick. Yes, he was, and yes, he was. YT Spartan says, Akins sucked first half, became Superman second half. I don't know if I'd agree that he sucked the first half. Let me look at my notes here. He got in foul trouble. He missed the last 5 minutes of the first half. He had a transition three-pointer that gave Michigan State a 20-12 lead at the 10-minute mark. Other than that, he played some good defense, like I mentioned a minute ago, on Jalen Hood-Schifino. And Schifino is an excellent player, and you didn't hear from him much yesterday, and Akins had a lot to do with it. That defense is coming around. But that three-pointer that Akins had that gave Michigan State a 20-12 lead from the left corner, that also was blitz counter break. Or no, that was it wasn't blitz. It was off a clean rebound. Tyson Walker gets the rebound, pushes it. So point guard, pseudo point guard, gets the rebound. Akins sprints down the left wing. And this is where the transition game was looking good. And Michigan State's transition game has been good in spurts here and there. Veterans, athletes, nowhere to go. But it's not like Michigan State has the depth to just be blitzing all the time. Because you just tire your guys out. They don't have enough depth there. Plus, Brooks is not a sprinter. Even when they get Hall back, he's not a sprinter. So it's not Michigan State's best transition game. But in spurts, they can catch you. And this was one point in case in point. Rebound, Walker, dribble, gets it out to Hogard. Hogard's running the left lane, catch, forwards it up to Akins, bomb, three-pointer. That was guard rebound, guard to guard to guard, getting to points on the floor in the transition, the Judd Heathcote transition system. And that's having 2 point guards on the court. 1 point guard that can rebound and go, another one's getting the outlet. That was pretty. But I respect your opinion. Kenneth Roberts must have left us because we had the phones open momentarily, but he did not call. So, Kenneth Roberts, go ahead and post on the Underground Bunker message board over at SpartanMag.com, Kenneth, and we can answer that question over there, possibly. YT Sparty said, I wanted him benched. Glad I didn't coach. You wanted Akins benched? Well, who are you bringing in? So, Akins, I wonder what Akins could have done that made YT Sparty all sour about him. Did he have the one turnover? I don't know. Malcolm Jones says Michigan State defense should be strong with all redshirt freshmen coming off the bench. On that defense, we haven't had much football tonight, have we? Mangum and Spencer are going to be good at safety. Malcolm Jones. He got on the field in special teams this year. He'll be in the mix somewhere. What do we have here? I was going to look it up. Yeah, I'll get to it later. Anyway, I was going to look up the roster and just kind of have some thoughts, but we've got all offseason to do that. We had Killip coming in, then Old Tug saying the bell cow, settle down, Kenneth, no phones for you. Old Tug says in those past 2 pressers, he's mentioned injured versus hurt in regard to Hall. What do you think he's saying on that? Good question. Good question. After the game yesterday, he said, is he injured or is he hurt? He said, if he's injured, then you got to do what you have to do to take care of it. If he's hurt, then he's not playing, which is like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Just means the same thing. What he means, I think what he's trying to say is, if you're injured and it's an injury, then if you use it, it's going to get worse and it might harm it for the future. Then you don't play and it's understandable. If it's hurt and playing is not going to make it any worse, what he's saying is at some point you just have to play through the pain. I think that's what Izzo was saying. Is he injured or is he hurt? If he's injured and it's going to hurt it more and it's going to damage it, then you don't play. If it's playing through pain, it's a different thing. That's why I said it's mental. So Izzo's kind of, he's not sure. They had different diagnoses on that thing. You know, he said the CAT scan said one thing, the MRI said another thing, and they had different opinions. So it's a mystery, and it's a big factor as to what the ceiling of this team is going to be going forward. Old Tug says, is a 3-star sleeper from Florida, Philip Davis, and Akeem Shabai type of player. Now, that's Old Tug just using an old name from the past, trying to get a chuckle out of me. But no, he's much taller than Agim Shabai, and he's a defensive player rather than a wide receiver. And Agim Shabai was a great, great high school player for the high school level. And he came to Michigan State and had like 40 catches as a freshman or sophomore. He's productive. Then he kind of flaked out and whatever. But when he was in high school, I saw him live once, Farmington Hills Harrison, when Drew Stanton was quarterback against somebody. And it was the Friday after 9/11. If 9/11 was a Tuesday, that would have been the 11th, right? I had to pull out the abacus for that one. No, the 14th, Friday the 14th. September 14th, Friday, 2001. I know where I was that night. I was in the Detroit area watching Shabai play, and he was terrific. I mean, just making people miss. At the high school level, he's excellent. But no, he's not a Shabai. Sea-Dog says, I hope there's a quarterback competition this summer. Thorne was not great this past season, in my opinion. Malcolm Jones says, is Philip Davis a good player? Good question. I'm just starting to look at his film right now. I'll know more next week. I'll have a better opinion next week. Gordon Sonona says, neither was the entire team, especially Tucker. Oh, talking about, he was piggybacking off the Peyton Thorne comment. Samuel DeJesus says, hey, Jim, who do you think should start next year as Michigan State quarterback? I kind of like Peyton Thorne. I know a lot of people don't. I like him as a kid. I think he's pretty good. They won 11 games with him, although they had the best player in the country with him. So you would have to be really good to beat out Peyton Thorne, I think. I think Noah Kim can play starting quarterback for somebody, and Michigan State's done well to keep him along this long. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't gone to he could go to James Madison or Liberty, and I think start for one of those upstart 10-win type of teams. But he stayed, and that's to Michigan State's credit. You know, a lot of people are high on Caton Hauser. He's got some talent, he's got some learning to go, but I mean, in the bits and pieces we've seen, I think Noah Kim is better than Caton Hauser right now. You know, Hauser's got a lot of talent. He might have that it factor. I don't know. We've not seen it. But, you know me, I'm not big on the unknown is undefeated. And I think Peyton Thorne's pretty good. I think he's pretty good. And there's a lot of teams that would have liked to have had Peyton Thorne last year. Wisconsin, Iowa, Northwestern. A lot of teams would have liked to have had Peyton Thorne. Old Tuck says, is Fears most similar to Cleves, Appling, or Kalen Lucas? He's got more personality than Appling or Lucas. I think he's got strength and quickness like Lucas. I've not seen him enough to know whether his passing skills are up there with Cleves. I thought Hogard had some Draymond. I thought Hogard was like a 6'4" Draymond Green with his feel for the court and just getting it going. So it's a great question. I gotta watch. For Fears, what I need to do, and I've not done it, I need to go back and watch some of those Team USA games from last summer. Some real basketball against real structured defenses at a high level. I don't have the answer for that one totally. Gordon Donona says Steve Jude should start at quarterback. He's being a wise guy. Steve Jude was quarterback for national championship team, Michigan State, 1965. And then Jimmy Ray was 66, or do I have that backwards? I should know that. Give me a demerit on that. That'll cost me a helmet sticker. I've got Ray of Light up there on the bookshelf. I should go look it up right now. Old Tuck's calling for Damon Dowdell. Gordon Donona's calling for Earl Morrill. Ben Cheese calling for Drew Stanton. Gordon Donona's calling for Eddie Smith. Old Tuck's going for Dave Urema. Sea-Dog says, the fact that Ono's mom, Yoko, went to Penn State gives them the advantage in that one, I'm afraid. Sea-Dog's being a wise guy. Old Tuck wants Todd Schultz. Gordon Donona says Yoko Ono was a hippie. All right, we don't need to start labeling people. And she has nothing to do with Chimney Odo, the offensive lineman that Michigan State's recruiting that visited last week. Spartoon89 Hicks says, go green from Duck Lake. Gordon Donona wants Brian Clark, the son of Monty Clark. Remember when Monty Clark was coaching the Lions? Remember him doing this one when Eddie Murray, one of the best kickers in Lions history, was ready to salt away a victory for the Lions in the playoffs at Candlestick Park against Joe Montana and the San Francisco 49ers. And Eddie Murray missed it. The Detroit Lions have won one playoff game in my lifetime. Make that field goal and you double it. I like the Lions. I like the Lions just the way they are. I'm not sure what would happen if anything changed. Kevin from Glendale, Arizona checking in. Gordon Diono says the quarterback from Great Falls, Montana. Old Tuck says Bradley Van Pelt. Bradley Van Pelt, good athlete. Morris Watts, I think wanted to move him to linebacker. Morris Watts, he wanted, was it Smoker at the time? Watts was all in on Smoker, and Smoker was very good. And they inherited Ryan Van Dyke, and Van Dyke was very good. But Morris Watts cast his lot with Smoker. And Van Dyke, I don't think ever quite got all that much of a fair shake. Smoker got hurt a little bit. Van Dyke came in, beat Notre Dame, then Van Dyke got hurt. Smoker ended up going the rest of the way. Van Dyke got a shot in the World League of American Football, a good player. And he's still a quarterback mentor in West Michigan a little bit. He's developed some players. One of these days he'll develop a good one that ends up at Michigan State or in the Big Ten, I think. It's not the greatest pocket of quarterback producing talent in the world, but Ryan Van Dyke's a good guy. I see him around campus once in a while. Always happy to see him. And he was a talented quarterback. But Bradley Van Pelt, they're talking about moving him to linebacker. He transferred to Colorado State, and he ran that option for them, and he could fly. Van Pelt was another one that was a little bit ahead of his time. You put Bradley Van Pelt in zone read option, would have been a problem. All right. Daninos was a great competitor back in the day for Michigan State, says Sea-Dog. Old Tuck mentions that Bradley Van Pelt played for John L., then transferred to Colorado State. I thought that might have been the Bobby Williams era, because I think, was it John L. that wanted to move Van Pelt to say to Old Tuck might have me covered on that one. I was thinking it was the Bobby Williams era when Bradley Van Pelt transferred out. Let's see. Chucky Houston says the special teams coach should have been fired this year. Michigan State seriously thinks about revamping their football program. I think he means if. I think he left out an if. If Michigan State seriously thinks about revamping their football program. All right, your opinion is duly noted. And Gordon Diono agrees. Sea-Dog says Scott Green is another great competitor from the past. Always seemed to make the clutch play when needed. Yeah, Scott Green, great fullback, became feature back. Carolina Panthers, good hands, good strength, good make you miss, good nose for the goal line. John Elke says, from Clarkston, checking in from Tucson, Arizona tonight. John, thanks for joining us. Old Tug says Scotty Green could run it and catch it. He played with Robert Organism, Oregon. True. Sea-Dog says, yep, Green was one of the best in his day. I think Scotty Green might have been team MVP twice, which has not been done at Michigan State very often. I don't even know if they do those awards anymore. You know, they used to have the football bust, and then that became smaller and smaller. And then it just kind of became a team and parents thing. Then COVID. Now I got a new coach. And I don't know if they do team awards anymore. But Scotty Green was MVP 95, 96, I think. Old Tuck says Bob Denton could also open holes up for that 94 team. Bob Denton was a good one. Offensive guard number 60 from Martinsville, Indiana. He caught a tackle-eligible touchdown pass against Penn State in 1993. That was the renewal of the Michigan State-Penn State rivalry, the first meeting between the two teams as Big Ten opponents. Chucky Houston says they'd better have at least 9 wins next year, or we need to start looking for another coaching carousel. Gordon Diono says the Big O. What else do we have here? Talking about Organism. He says, was his nickname in his hometown. I saw him drink 43 beers at a wedding one night. It's impressive in any hemisphere. And chew a can of Skol. Like, now he's just showing off. Chucky Houston says, Gordon, I understand, but I don't want to live in the past like Michigan fans did past for decades. Chucky Houston's a demanding fan. Gordon Diono says, Penix will torch us and become the Heisman Trophy frontrunner. I thought Penix was the best player in college football this year. And before the Michigan State-Washington game, I said in the pre-snap read that I thought he was just as good as C.J. Stroud, which surprised some people because Michigan State fans knew Penix from when he was at Indiana. But the things he did after sitting out and in that offense, I was like, man, this guy's got to go. You saw what he is. Old Tuck says, Charlie, that's what we do here sometimes. The history is rich. Paul Hodgson reporting in from beautiful Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was in Grand Rapids a couple times this winter. Went down there for a hockey tournament, high school hockey, couple hockey tournament in the fall. Again, 2 weeks ago, Michigan, or one of the team that my son plays for, played against. Why don't I know this? Grand Rapids something. And then I was back there for the GLI. Checked out the GLI in Van Andel Arena. It was nice being down there. It's a nice arena. I like it, the way it's situated downtown. It's picturesque from the outside. On the inside, there's some good things about it. It's not great for hockey because the sound gets absorbed into the seats or something. It's very quiet, but I like it. It was good to be down there. I'm hoping the GLI can stick and do some good things there. And I think it will if Michigan State can become a top 10 program and stay in the top 10. And it would be nice if Western Michigan can remain a top 10 program. And they were top 10 last year. And it would be nice if Michigan Tech remains a top 20 program. Michigan Tech was weak through most of the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s. They were power in the 60s and 70s. Power. They won 3 or 4 national titles. But Michigan Tech fans, they show up for that. Michigan Tech alums that are in the Lower Peninsula, they come out to that, and they got the big band, and they make noise, and it's a big deal to them, as it should be, and that's wonderful. And the question is, if Michigan State's good, how many Michigan State fans go? And if that happens every year, and you start getting it every year, knowing that between the holidays, between Christmas and New Year's, if Michigan State's playing hockey in Grand Rapids every single year, and people in West Michigan, Michigan State fans in West Michigan can plan around it, I think that the GLI in Grand Rapids has a chance to be pretty fun. Michigan's not in it anymore. That's unfortunate because anytime Michigan and Michigan State play in anything, it's intense. Everybody knows that. Michigan versus Michigan State in hockey, they've had some great matchups in Detroit in the past. And they'll still play once a year in Detroit, and that's great, whatever. But the GLI, different flavor. Detroit dropped it. Olympia Entertainment dropped it, whatever. Grand Rapids, it was fun to be there. I don't get to go to the GLI a lot because usually I'm at a bowl game. This year there was no bowl game. We were available. Konadike and I went over there and had a good time with it. Old Tuck says, we talk about chaps like Willie the Polar Bear, Comerford, and Hubert Boo Boo Thompson. That's from the Saban era. Steve Myers said, hi, Jim, from McKinney, Texas. Love the program. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Everybody make sure to give us a like for this and subscribe to the channel. We need it. And go to SpartanMag.com, become a subscriber for $1. Bryson Tucker recruitment update. I've got nothing on that one. Lines 56 says, what are the keys to stopping Chris Murray? Who will have to guard him? Hogard. I'm sorry, Hauser. Murray pretty much plays a 4, right? It's a good question. By the way, how is his brother stacking up in comparison to Ivy in the NBA? I don't know. I'd like to see. I'm curious about that comparison going forward. I think Murray right now is ranked the highest player in the Big Ten for NBA draft stock right now. It's not a real great crop of NBA talent in the Big Ten, not as good as last year. Matthew Latham says, go green. Matthew Latham, known as MSU Stu on the Underground Bunker message board. You can check my math on the GLI. Predators on the fly, says Matt from Grand Rapids. Updates on snow. Any word on the progress of Alex Van Sumeren? Predators on the fly. Looks like my guy's got, I'm thinking he's sight fishing in the Florida Keys, judging by his outfit and sunglasses in the sky. Is that a bonefish? Nice. You're way more accomplished than I am in the art of fly fishing. I'm like the Steve Cherry of fly fishing. No offense, Steve. We love you. Just joking. Snow, that was a serious injury. He's got a long way to go. And as I map out next season, I'm not expecting him to be a part of it. That's just my expectation. I've not heard that specifically. I'm just not expecting it. I'm not predicting that he's going to be out. I'm just not expecting him to be back this year. And in the future, I'm just not sure. I have to wait and see. And if he comes back, what version of himself? Not sure. And that sucks for him because he's a great kid. But also because, he was going to have an impact as a linebacker on this defense. All right, he says, any word on the progress of Alex Van Sumeren? I'll be looking to see him this spring. He got on the field early in the season, and he looked like a teenager. He always had a lot of quickness. Question was, could he have the strength to really hold up against double teams at the college level and defeat blocks? He's not a guy with the longest arms, so he's got to get into you a little bit. He's got quickness, but how much shock does he have? It's something we were never going to see in the camps, and we were never going to see against the teams he played against in high school. No fault of his own. But we'll know more in the spring game. We saw him a little bit in September, and he was what he was. He looked like a teenager. I have to wait and see. Zach Everett says, any news on the severity of Darius Snow's injury? Is it career-ending like some people have speculated? I have not heard that definitively, but it wouldn't surprise me, judging by, the comments that Tucker had and the way it looks and so forth. He doesn't accept it as career ending right now. He's trying to come back, so I'm not going to sell him short on anything. Baus Maine says, would have won the 2010 with Lucas healthy national title. I agree. 2010 national title if Caleb Lucas does not get injured against Maryland. I think Michigan State beats Butler. They lost to Butler by a point. Butler lost to Duke by 2. It was not a good Duke team. I think if Caleb Lucas the year before was Big Ten MVP, was injured twice that year in 2010 as a junior. If he doesn't get injured, I agree. I think Michigan State would have won a national title in 2010. Izzo would have 2 national titles. And if Appling hadn't been hurt all year in 2014, do they beat UConn at Madison Square Garden and does Michigan State win that national title? As good a chance as anybody. And Izzo could have 3 national titles. Takes luck sometimes. Dean Smith won 2 national titles, as many games as he won. He didn't win his first national title till his 20th year or so. He had a lot of bad luck earlier in his career. 2005 was a great Final Four. Illinois was undefeated for so much of the season. Lost a game or 2 late. North Carolina beat them in the national title game. Very good national title. Very good North Carolina team. But if Allen Anderson had not gotten hurt in the Elite 8 against Kentucky, and Allen Anderson, team MVP, NBA player, underrated nationally, people didn't realize how big that injury was. Michigan State really had the transition game going at that time, beating Duke and Kentucky in consecutive games that year. North Carolina was very good, but might they have caught North Carolina looking ahead to Illinois? Michigan State was, I think, were they down at halftime by like 2 or 3 to North Carolina? The run game was kind of okay. Put Allen Anderson on the court for that game for those 40 minutes. And North Carolina only had 40 minutes to prove they were the better team. North Carolina was the better team, but you only get 40 minutes to prove it. Give me Allen Anderson in that game. I'd like to play it again. So Izzo's had some bad luck with injuries in March. As great as he's been in March, he's had some bad luck. And he's never really pointed that out a whole lot. But that should come up at some point. Maybe he's due some good luck injury-wise. Maybe this year. Bausman says, arguably he should have anyway since Hayward fouled Draymond Green with a score of 52-40 or 52-50. Draymond Green could have been a foul call. Draymond wanted a foul call. Does he make both free throws? Do you win in overtime? I don't know. Did Michigan State a week earlier against Tennessee get away with a foul call? It was a big foul call on Tennessee, Elite 8. I think we were in St. Louis. Raymar Morgan going up, and Tennessee guy really emphatically came down, hatchet job on the ball. And replay to me shows that he got all ball. I think he was so demonstrative with it that the official anticipated contact, called the foul. Raymar Morgan Chip tooth from earlier in the game. Bam, bam, hits both free throws. Huge play in the game, if I'm remembering it correctly. Michigan State benefited from a questionable call that one. Kalen Lucas didn't get to play. Now, wait a minute. So Kalen Lucas was... Yeah, okay. That was Indiana. All right. Top 5 Big Ten teams in order. Purdue. And right now, Indiana arrested Michigan State, Illinois in there somewhere, and I don't know who 5th is. And I know most people wouldn't have Michigan State that high. Give them a couple days rest, and right now they're 3rd, 4th in the Big Ten. Without Malik Hall. Bring them back, and that gives the Big Ten 2 good teams, in my opinion. And we'll see if Indiana continues to build. Not sure on Illinois. Talented, but we'll see. Lions 56 says, will Michigan make the tournament? I don't think so. It's not trending that way. What seed do you think Michigan State will be in the tournament? I think they're going to win enough to be like a 5. Bausman says, hard to say if Michigan will make the tourney at this point. If it's close, then I'd say there's a good chance they get a play-in bid. Gordon Sonona says Michigan sucks. All right. Gordon Sonona says he wants a snow bunny. I can respect that. Slim Pickens checking in from Bradenton, Florida. Sparty will be fine come tournament time, he says. LFG says, at Jim, I read a powerful story you recounted where former Michigan State head coach Darryl Rogers first encouraged Kerry Gibson to play baseball and changed Gibby's life. I actually forgot about that. I was not aware of that. Somebody mentioned that. I think Gibson might have mentioned that. And yeah, I relayed that. That was not something that I knew previously. LFG says, at Jim, over under that Kim is still quarterback 1 heading into Spartans' final 23 regular season college football game. Over under that he's still quarterback 1. Over under, like percentage. That's probably like, I'm going to put that at like 15%. And I like Noah Kim, but that's, I don't know. Goalie 31 says, do you think Malik Hall comes back next year? I think he has a year if he takes it. He does have a year, and it depends on how his health turns out and how the season turns out. I could see him possibly coming back. Gerald Wasserman says, tell Nils that Buckeye Sparty says hello. I'll tell him, but I'm sorry I didn't get to tell him live. My bad. Let's see. I think we're about done. We've been on for quite a while. YD Spartan says, Sissoko has fallen off. The dude is whacking balls out of bounds rather than pulling them down. You're right. The hands are not as good as they were earlier. I think Sissoko has a chance to level out, though, and do okay. YT Sparty says, Kohler's on the verge of replacing Matty. I don't dispute that either. I think they could level out with them each playing 20 minutes a game. Kohler needs to improve on defense. I think that's possible. Sissoko, I'd like to see Sissoko get some more post feeds. All right. I appreciate all the posts. Just making sure I didn't miss anything else. YD Sparty says Michigan State shot 54% from three-point range against Rutgers, and totally killed Rutgers totally killed Michigan State on the boards. We lucked out. It's a good point. YD Sparty says we only play Minnehaha once, which sucks. It's a good point also. Natalie Rose says, I feel like Rutgers it's going to be a fight against Rutgers. They have a whole week to practice before. All right. I've not checked the schedule. That's a good point. And it will be a fight. All right. I think that's about it. Man, a lot of posts here. Andrew Lyon says, what freshman for hoops are you looking forward to the most? Fears is going to be excellent. Cone's going to be excellent too. Tim Hughes says, go green for Traverse City. YT Sparty says, I'd rather have Marble than Matty Sissoko. Yeah, Marble never rebounded well, and Marble had kind of leveled off, but you knew what you were going to get. And he had some good games where he shot the little baseline. I would agree with that right now. By March, maybe Sissoko will be better in some ways, but I don't dispute that. YT Sparty says Marble's doing really well at A&M. I've actually not looked that up. I'd be interested to see how he's doing. The Foam Coroner says, how can we start using Akins, his driving and finishing abilities more, and use him less as a spot-up shooter? It seems like this team is living, dying by threes too much. Izzo's teams a lot of times do become jump shot teams. They run good stuff for catch and shoot. And, they do zoom action drive, and they do some things, ball screen drive. But you're right. Akins' driving ability. Michigan State's never had an offense where they give it to somebody on a wing, clear out, and let them rocker step, drive, go to work, and things like that. But you do see Akins once in a while get a ball screen. You could see more of that. But I don't know. Would you rather him doing that than Walker or Hogard? They're all pretty good at it. But Akins, Izzo said after this game that if he had something to do over, he would run more plays for Akins, because Akins is kind of doing some special stuff, on the verge of some special stuff. So they'll be racking their brains on that one. And they've got open minds on it. I mean, for instance, you've seen A.J. Hogard post up once or twice, 2 or 3 times a game. That's something they've never done before in terms of posting up guards like that. It didn't score in this game, but it's been productive in other games. Nick Harrington says, do you truly believe that this spring-summer will be an open quarterback competition? Yes, I do. He says, I know they've said that, but I still feel like they have Thorne a little bit ahead of everyone. I agree. They probably do have Thorne a little bit ahead of everyone because he's a known commodity, but I do think it's a competition. Now, if it's close, you probably still go with Thorne, I'm guessing. But, Noah Kim came in injury situations in the past. Might there be situations this year where Noah Kim or someone else comes in, not because of injury, but because trying to jumpstart something? I think it's possible. Fleet says, you think Hauser's quarterback 1? I have a good feeling he's going to be. I've not seen that yet. Fleet says, no way Hauser's not quarterback 1 next year. Way too much talent, and he's super smart. Unknown's undefeated. Vaso Vuk says, this might have already been covered already, but do you think AJ and Ty stay for next year? If they decide to explore the pros, then our guard play becomes really young with only Holloman, Akins, and Fears. I think Hogard's coming back. He'll be a senior. I think he'll come back. I heard some rumblings last year that he might be looking to go, but I don't know. Fears will be good. Walker, I've got a feeling that Walker's going to be ready to go try and make some money somewhere. Just a hunch. And he'll be a senior, but he could come back for a 6th, or would it be a 5th? I lost count. But I think he's going to want to go try to make money somewhere, overseas or whatever. A lot of posts. Beverly Mason says, checking in from Phoenix, Arizona, do we have a kicker for our team yet? No. I mean, Ben Patton is back, the guy that missed the one against Indiana, and they've got the transfer Kim from North Carolina. They're going to compete. Rusnack's still around, but I think it's going to be between Kim and Patton. I've not heard anything about the punter. I intend to try to find out more about that. YT Sparty says the GLI should have Notre Dame play. Screw Michigan. Notre Dame is an option. I mean, Ferris State was in it this year, beat Michigan State. But if you have Notre Dame in there, that'd be interesting. Does Notre Dame want to play in it? Some teams that have a lot of players in the World Juniors, Notre Dame might have 1 or 2, but some teams don't want to play at that point. For instance, but I don't know if you I don't know. Yeah, I think that's a natural. I'm sure Notre Dame has an opinion about the GLI already. I don't know what it is, but that's a good question. I think Notre Dame would provide some flavor. They won't bring many fans. Would they bring more than Ferris? I don't know, but it'd be more flavor. I mean, when you're selling that Michigan State versus Notre Dame, I think it's going to draw more Michigan State fans if that's a semifinal game of the GLI. And instead of rotating it, I almost wonder if you should go Michigan Tech versus Western every single year in that, and then Michigan State versus whoever the at-large is. And let Michigan State work on whoever the at-large is going to be. That's a Michigan Tech tournament, but Michigan State is a partner in it. But Tommy B says, GLI needs Michigan. They're a top 10 team almost every year. I agree with that, but Michigan doesn't want to play in it. Michigan doesn't want to. But I heard that Michigan Tech literally hung the phone up on Michigan during their talks about it. Vaso Vuk says, Edie's from my neighborhood in Toronto. Played on my AAU team. My friend, who's a pharmacist, fulfills his Viagra prescription. That's a little too much information. I really probably shouldn't have read that whole thing. I usually read these things without digesting them. Whitey Sparty says, I think GLI used to offer a big name like Harvard. You're right. Whitey Sparty says, Ivy's a disappointment, like I knew he would be. I'm just curious here. I want to look up. Jaden Ivey, 32% from three-point range. That's not bad. I thought it might be worse than that. 32, that's not bad for a rookie year. He can build on that. That tells me that he can be a 40% three-point shooter at some point. That's good. Jaden Ivey scoring 15 points a game. That's pretty good. I don't know what's disappointing about that. I've not watched them play a whole lot. Natalie Rose, big Michigan State fan. Tommy B says Michigan was robbed in the 2013 finals against Louisville. Yeah, Michigan gets robbed like all the time from what I hear. Anyway, thanks to everybody for posting. Appreciate everybody for sticking around. And let's see, Nick Harrington's got one more. I remember seeing New Hampshire in the GLI, so clearly they've been open to it being an open search. Yeah, they've always had the three main ones were Michigan, Michigan State, and Michigan Tech, and then they rotated the fourth. You're right. So it's good to have some GLI talk. All right, hey, I'm a little tired. Going to wrap this one up. Tuesday, if you're watching this on Tuesday, go check out SpartanMag. Izzo's got a press conference, his weekly press conference on Tuesday, as we look ahead to Michigan State versus Iowa on Thursday. And keep an eye on Michigan State recruiting. Philip Davis, commitment watch. Jason Killip's got the coverage at SpartanMag.com. Go to SpartanMag.com, become a Magger. $1 gets you through August 31st. Do it. You'll love it. Appreciate all the support here. Give us a like. We'll see you next time. Take it easy. SpartanMag.com.